Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a stroll. Well, more like a shiver and stumble through the gaslit streets of the 19th century, where your new job is less romantic, old-world charm and more constant mild terror with poor dental benefits. You are now a lamplighter. Congratulations, or condolences. You wake up groggy because your shift doesn't begin with the sunrise like everyone else's. It starts just before sunset when the sky goes gray and shadows stretch like lazy cats over uneven cobblestones. You rub your eyes, still gritty with sleep, and try to ignore the sinking feeling in your gut. You've made it through orientation if you can call one old man yelling, "Don't set your pants on fire, orientation." And tonight is your first solo round. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Is it already dark? I hope not. You're about to walk into a lot of it. The lamplighter's job seems simple enough: light the lamps, don't trip on the curb, and try not to get eaten by stray dogs or stared at by weird children. But here's the thing, you probably won't survive this. Not because the job is impossibly hard, though it's no picnic, but because you've got a fatal flaw: you're afraid of the dark. And that is going to be a problem. You sit on the edge of your cot and stare at your uniform heavy wool coat, thick-soled boots, and a hat that smells faintly of grease sweat and some century-old blend of pipe tobacco. You're not sure who wore it last, and you're not sure you want to know. There's also a leather utility belt equipped with everything you'll need: a long lighter stick called a torch pole, a wick trimmer, a stubby little oil can, and a small brass whistle in case of emergencies. You blow the whistle experimentally. No sound. The reed inside is missing. Classic. Your landlord has already banged on the door once to remind you that if you're late again, she'll lock you out. You're pretty sure she means it. You lace up your boots, still damp from yesterday's rain, and step outside into the blue hour when the city holds its breath, caught between day and night. The streets are uneven and the air smells like coal smoke, horse manure, and the faintest trace of roasted chestnuts. The city is settling into itself. Shopkeepers are pulling down shutters, chimney sweeps are heading home with soot-streaked faces, and somewhere a dog is barking like it has a grudge against the moon. Your assigned route is a modest 1 Street 17 lamps, and one deeply suspicious alley that the veteran lamplighter warned you to do last if you're still alive. You laughed. He didn't. As you head toward your first post, your footsteps echo louder than expected. The quiet is different here, not peaceful, but expectant. It's the kind of quiet that makes you glance over your shoulder just in case the shadows behind you learn to walk. Let's talk about what lamplighters really did. Contrary to some artistic depictions, you're not just prancing through the streets with a glowing torch. You have to climb each post, usually with a hook ladder, sometimes with built-in iron rungs. Open the glass casing, trim the soot-caked wick often while squinting to see if it's really out. Refill the oil if it's low, then light it. If the lamp is gas-powered, you adjust the valve and pray you don't cause a small explosion. Fun. Historically, the job dates back centuries. London officially had lamplighters from the 17th century onward, but it was the 1800s that saw the job truly explode across cities in Europe and America. And while you might imagine that the profession came with prestige, most lamplighters were paid just enough to afford a bed, a meal, and occasional replacement socks. The fringe detail. In some towns, lamplighters had to sign oaths swearing they wouldn't drink on the job. Not because it was dangerous, but because inebriated lamplighters had a habit of lighting the wrong things. There are records of drunken workers attempting to ignite posts that weren't even lamps. One famously tried to light a statue twice. You reach your first post and it looks taller than you remember. The iron ladder has one rung missing, middle one of course, and the metal is cold and slightly greasy. You take a deep breath and climb, awkwardly balancing your kit while muttering encouragements under your breath. Just light it. That's all. One lamp. You can do this. At the top, you wedge the torch pole through the narrow hatch, strike a match, and lean in. The flame flutters, catches, and blooms inside the glass casing like a tiny sunrise. You pause for a second, oddly proud. One down. But now night has properly arrived. The shadows are thicker, and you suddenly realize that for every lamp you light, you must walk through darkness to get to the next one. It's a strange paradox. Your job is to bring light, but you spend most of your time surrounded by the absence of it. Historians still argue whether lamplighters actually reduced crime in cities. Some claim that early street lighting deterred petty theft and mischief, while others suggest it simply moved such activities deeper into unlit alleys. Either way, it gave people the illusion of safety, and that illusion was part of your job description, whether you realized it or not. You light 3 more lamps, your hands shaking a little less each time. You start to hum partly to soothe yourself, partly to cover the sounds you think you're hearing, the soft scrape of shoes that aren't yours, a cough from somewhere behind a shutter, the unmistakable clink of something metal being dragged. You tell yourself it's probably a cat, a large metallic cat. You glance back down the street. Your lamps glow like breadcrumbs in the dark, warm and steady. For a moment it looks beautiful. Then the wind picks up and 2 of them flicker, and so begins your very long night. You trudge toward your next lamp as the wind begins to bite cold, sharp, and laced with chimney soot. Somewhere above a door slams and startles a flock of pigeons into the dusky sky. You flinch. You'd like to say it's because of the noise, but let's be honest, it's the dark. Most people wind down at sunset. They pull on woolen slippers, sip lukewarm tea, and complain about the draft coming under the door. But not you. As the world gets quieter and windows start glowing from within, you're tightening your belt and heading into the streets. This is your morning routine, just at completely the wrong time of day. Back in your narrow room earlier, you barely had time for a proper breakfast. There was a stale heel of bread, a smear of jam, questionable, and tea so weak it might have just been hot water that once stood next to a tea leaf. The gas lamp sputtered above your wash basin, flickering with every passing gust. Like it too didn't believe in your ability to survive the night. Your boots still haven't dried. Each step squelches slightly, which doesn't help your mood or your traction. The uneven paving stones aren't exactly friendly to damp soles. Your foot slips at least once every block, and you've already managed to stub your toe on a cobblestone the size of a child's head. You mutter something very un-Lamplighter-like under your breath. Some lamplighters back in the day had assistants, usually kids who carried the oil can or helped clean the lanterns in the daylight. You have no such luxury, just you, your aching back, and the looming dread that comes with every flickering corner. A gust of wind rushes through the alley as you approach your next lamp. You squint upward. The iron post is taller than the last one. The glass casing looks smudged like it hasn't been cleaned since last autumn, and the hinge is slightly rusted. You groan inwardly. Wind is your enemy tonight. The flame on your torch stick flickers wildly, threatening to die before you even get it near the lamp. You shield it with your hand and climb each step on the ladder, sending a dull jolt through your knees. You get to the top, open the casing, and strike a match only to have it blow out instantly. You try again. This time the match lights, but just as you lean in a gust, whooshes past and flick your tiny flame vanishes again. You mutter a few unhelpful words and press the matchbook to your chest, trying to shield it like a miser with gold. Historical fact, lamplighters were trained to light their torches behind their coats, using their bodies as shields from the wind. There's a technique to it. Tilt the coat just right. Hold the match low and pray no one sees you doing what looks suspiciously like setting your own torso on fire. Finally, the lamp catches. A tiny, hesitant flame blooms, wavers, then steadies. You exhale slowly, not realizing you'd been holding your breath. By now, the wind has picked up. Your coat flaps behind you like a poorly designed cape, and your hat threatens to take flight at least twice. You shove it down, ignoring how the brim smacks your ear. Dignity left somewhere back on lamp number 3. Quirky tidbit: in some towns, lamplighters wore weighted capes to prevent precisely this problem. Unfortunately, those capes were also prone to catching on sharp ironwork, and once even pulled a lamplighter clean off his ladder. The incident, according to local gossip, did not go unnoticed by the baker's wife across the street, who reportedly giggled for a full minute before helping. You light another 2 lamps, fumbling with the latch on the second one, which sticks like it's glued shut. You yank, twist, and finally thump it with the flat of your palm. It opens with a squeal that sounds alarmingly like protest. The kind of noise you'd expect from an old wooden puppet that's just been brought to life and wants you to leave. Down the street, a couple walks arm in arm, their laughter trailing behind them like perfume. You envy them. They don't have to climb rickety ladders or chase errant flames through icy gusts. All they have to do is not get in your way. Historians still argue whether street lighting really improved morale among urban populations. Some records suggest it gave cities a sense of security, while others argue it only shifted crime from well-lit areas to those poorly lit or forgotten by overworked lamplighters like yourself. One city official reportedly insisted that street lamps light the path to moral clarity. Another official in the same meeting asked if moral clarity comes with extra wicks. You finish this section of your route and duck into a narrow lane to relight your torch. The flame's almost out and you need it strong for the next few blocks, especially the one with the courtyard full of laundry lines and suspiciously silent windows. As you bend over your torch shielding the match with cupped fingers, you hear a noise. Footsteps, faint, uneven, not yours. You glance up but the street's empty. Just your own breath in the cold air and a flickering pool of yellow light at your feet. Probably nothing. Probably a stray dog or someone else heading home late. You keep telling yourself that. But the footsteps don't return. You finish lighting your torch and move on, trying not to let the shadows crawl too far into your imagination. That's the thing about this job. You're alone. Even in the heart of a busy city surrounded by buildings full of people, you are the only soul out here in the true dark. And you've still got 15 lamps to go. You shift the strap of your toolkit on your shoulder, adjusting the weight of the oil can as it clinks gently against the long torch pole. The familiar weight is oddly comforting now, like a shield slung over your back, though a very leaky, slightly flammable one. Every job has its tools and yours are equal parts medieval and precarious. You pause beneath the next lamp, not yet lit, and take stock. One brass oil condented from being dropped twice and with a cap that doesn't screw on properly. One torch pole nearly as tall as you are with a frayed wick and a soot-blackened tip. One wick trimmer which looks like a pair of oddly menacing scissors and often behaves like one too. And finally your ladder, collapsible, wooden heavy, and absolutely determined to pinch your fingers whenever unfolded. You set the ladder against the lamppost with practiced clumsiness, then fish out the trimmer. Most people wouldn't think of trimming a flame, but that's what makes you special. If the wick is too long, the flame will smoke and sputter. If it's too short, it won't catch at all. You peer into the glass housing, squinting past a layer of soot that's slowly becoming part of your daily identity. Gas street lamps, the kind you're tending, were once a marvel of modern engineering. First introduced to London in the early 1800s, they quickly spread across Europe and North America. They burned bright, helped reduce accidents, and even supposedly cut down on crime. But they were also prone to leaks, explosions, and occasional acts of pigeon arson. Yes, really. One unfortunate bird once ignited itself on an open gas vent and flew into a milliner's shop, causing what newspapers called a panic of considerable feather. You reach up with the trimmer and gently snip the charred edge of the wick. It falls with a soft hiss onto your glove. You flick it away and strike a match. The torch pole's tip flares like a reluctant dragon, sputtering and coughing, before settling into a soft orange flame. You lift it to the open lamp and touch the wick. It catches. You step back down, oil can in hand, and assess. Still half full, which is good because you've got a long stretch ahead. The oil is thick, smelly, and occasionally congealed in cold weather. Some nights you have to hold it under your coat just to get it flowing properly. The scent alone would be enough to drive away unwanted company or friends. You remember reading once, somewhere between Lamplighter instruction manuals and overheard tavern gossip, that in some parts of the world, lamplighters used whale oil before gas lighting became widespread. Imagine that. Giant creatures of the deep, hunted and boiled into fuel for a flickering flame on a foggy London corner. History, you think, has an odd sense of balance. And now there's you. Small, slightly cold, slightly greasy you, pouring just enough oil into each lamp to last the night. No more, no less. Overfilling leads to leaks. Underfilling leads to midnight blackouts and angry letters from merchants who almost tripped over their own shadows. You screw the oil cap back on or try to, it spins once, then sort of gives up. Another lamp lit. Another point on your mental map checked off. You glance down at your gloves. They're already stained with soot and there's a spot of oil on your sleeve you're 90% sure wasn't there 10 minutes ago. Historians still debate whether lamplighters were considered respectable civil servants or simply expendable labor. In larger cities, they were often part of municipal departments and even wore insignia. In smaller towns, they were sometimes paid in food drink or vague promises of exposure. One letter from a lamplighter to his city council ends with, "I respectfully request either a raise or thicker socks." There's also the matter of your ladder. It's technically portable, yes, but not lightweight. You drag it behind you now like a stubborn mule, its wooden frame knocking softly against the cobblestones. Some lamplighters in fancier districts had permanent iron rungs affixed to the posts. You do not live in one of those districts. The lamp you approach now is on a corner next to a pub with a red door and a cracked window. From inside, muffled singing and the clink of glasses float through the night. You pause. You consider the smell of roast meat and warm ale, and for a moment you fantasize about chucking your oil can into the Thames and walking inside like a normal person. But you don't. You set the ladder against the post and get to work. As you climb, a cat darts across the street, pausing just long enough to give you a look that suggests it knows your soul and finds it disappointing. You nod in greeting. Evening, you say, because talking to animals is somehow less strange than talking to yourself. The cat vanishes into the shadows, tail flicking. You light this lamp faster than the last hand's working with something approaching confidence. You even catch yourself humming something soft and off-key. Possibly a lullaby. Possibly the funeral march. Hard to tell in this light. You lower the torch and glance back down the street. A ribbon of orange flickers behind you, each lamp like a glowing breadcrumb. It's almost beautiful. And then your torch sputters. You glance at it. The flame dances, then coughs. You shake it gently, trying not to look worried. If it goes out, you'll need to stop relight and shield it from the wind all over again. It's not the end of the world, just the end of your patience. You adjust the wick slightly, the flame stabilizes. For now, you continue. By the time you light your next 2 lamps, your muscles are starting to complain. Lifting the ladder, climbing up, bending over the lamp housing, holding the torch, it's all starting to add up. Your back twinges in protest, and your shoulders feel like they've been scrubbed with sandpaper. But there's still something quietly satisfying in the rhythm of it all. Light climb, trim oil light, move. You fall into the pattern like a lullaby in motion. The street ahead disappears into darkness, but you have your next steps memorized. 13 more lamps to go. 1 very questionable alley. And somewhere in your bag, 1 crushed biscuit you're saving for an emergency. You take a deep breath, steady your flame, and step forward into the dark. The wind howls softly as you round the corner into a wider street, if you can even call it that. It's more of a cluttered passage between buildings choked with crates, slanted signage, and the persistent aroma of onions. Not the fresh kind. The kind that's been trampled by horses and rained on twice. This is your next stretch, and it's not the pretty part of town. These blocks never got the postcard treatment. The buildings lean inward, as if eavesdropping on your every step, and the cobblestones are so uneven you suspect some of them might be trying to trip you on purpose. You catch yourself murmuring, don't fall, like a nervous mantra. The lamps here are spaced farther apart, something about budget constraints or gas line logistics, depending on which city bureaucrat you ask. All that means for you is more walking in the dark. And in a time before electric streetlights, that dark is total. The kind that clings to your coat and makes every sound seem closer than it is. The first lamp in this row is already out. You groan. Someone must have bumped it earlier, or maybe the wind got in. Either way, it's your problem now. You set down your ladder with a grunt and begin the familiar climb. At the top, you fumble with the latch. It sticks as usual, and you silently promise the post that you'll throw it into the sea if it squeaks one more time. It does. You light it anyway, and the flame catches quickly, almost too quickly, like it was waiting for you. For a moment, you wonder if the lamp is mocking you. Back on the ground, your torch glows softly, casting shadows that ripple like water across the damp stone. You realize something unsettling. You're not alone. You haven't seen anyone, but the noise level says otherwise. The city doesn't sleep at night, it just changes shape. During the day, it's all deliveries, shouting wheels, rattling over stones. But now the noises are quieter, closer, and harder to explain. There's a clang from behind a wooden crate, a scuffle near the far alley. You pause and scan the dark, but your torch's glow doesn't reach that far. You tighten your grip on the pole, not exactly a weapon, but better than your hands. Fun fringe detail, some lamplighters in 19th century Paris carried long staffs tipped with iron, partly for climbing assistance and partly for self-defense. One record mentions a lamplighter who reportedly fought off a mugger with his oil can, splashing the poor thief in the face and yelling, "Shine your own street, brigand." You move faster now, trying to cover ground. As you walk, your boots slap against puddles from a recent drizzle, soaking your already damp socks. One of the puddles smells like cabbage and regret. You don't look down. The next lamp is on a corner near a shuttered bakery. A warm memory flickers the smell of rising dough in the early morning, when you'd pass here after a night's work. That bakery made honey bread that stuck to your teeth and your soul. But tonight it's all closed shutters and shadows. You set the ladder and climb. From this height you can hear the city's whispers. A distant bell. A door creaking open somewhere far off. A horse snorting. And something else, a rhythmic clack like someone walking in heels though no one's visible. You light the lamp and it blooms to life, casting orange pools onto the street. Your heartbeat slows slightly. One more spot lit. One more patch of safety in a city that never quite feels safe. Historians still argue whether 19th century cities were ever truly sleeping. Many claim there was always movement dock workers unloading at odd hours, messengers riding between districts, and of course, lamplighters like you. Others suggest these nocturnal stirrings were more ghostly than human, fueled by stories whispered by firelight. And honestly, some nights, you're not sure which is worse. You keep moving. The route dips now and the street narrows. Buildings crowd in overhead, their wooden beams so low you have to duck. You feel like you've entered the city's lungs tight, warm, damp, and faintly wheezy. Here the lamps aren't just tools, they're lifelines. Without them, you'd be walking into pure blackness. You strike a match to relight your torch, watching it flare against the draft. Your fingers are sticky with soot and oil, and your breath fogs in front of you. You try not to notice how it briefly looks like something else is breathing near your shoulder. You whisper a joke aloud. At least the pigeons are asleep. No one laughs, not even you. But it helps. Ahead, you see a flicker. The lamp should be out, but it's glowing faintly. That's not right. You hurry toward it and discover someone's jammed a candle inside the casing. A makeshift repair? A prank? A trap? You gently remove it and replace it with your own torch flame. It catches, but the glass has been smeared with something. You squint. Lard. This job, this city, this shift. You keep going. The buildings change again. These are older, half-timbered, leaning inward like gossiping grandmothers. The street lamps here are some of the first installed in this district. They're rusted, creaky, and prone to malfunction. You recall being told not to breathe too hard on one of them, or it might fall over. The lamp in question is just ahead. You eye it suspiciously as you approach. It sways slightly, and you're not even touching it yet. You climb the ladder carefully, trying not to move too much. You hold your breath as you open the glass door. You trim the wick just barely. You light it. It flares suddenly too fast, and you almost drop your pole in surprise. The flame hisses, then calms. You breathe again. And then you hear it laughter. Not cruel, not threatening. Just sudden, quick, gone in an instant. You whirl around, still perched on your ladder, and see nothing. Just flickering light and your own shadow taller than any man should be dancing on the wall. You descend slowly. The streets behind you are brighter now, safer. But the streets ahead are still ink dark and waiting. 9 lamps down, 8 to go. And the night has only just begun. You reach the next lamppost and stop to rest a moment, shifting your weight from foot to foot as your knees whisper their complaints. Your shoulder aches from lugging the oil can, and your fingers are coated in a thin film of grime, oil, soot, and probably some pre-industrial mystery ingredient you've decided not to think about too closely. This particular lamp is wedged between a butcher shop and a tailor's. By day, the street bustles with activity aprons, flapping scissors, snipping deliveries being shouted across the cobblestones. But at night, it's hollow and still. The buildings loom over you like silent witnesses, and your only companion is the quiet hiss of your own torch. You prop the ladder and begin the climb, your hands stiff with the cold and the iron rungs slick with condensation. A bead of water slips down your neck as you lean in to open the casing. You suppress a shiver. Above you, the lantern groans on its bracket like it resents being disturbed. You mutter, "Join the club." You manage to trim the wick and ignite the flame, and for a moment the light spills out onto the wet street below. But almost as soon as it flares up, the wind hits. Hard. A sudden gust barrels down the alley like it's got somewhere urgent to be. Your coat flaps wildly, your hat nearly takes off, and worst of all, your flame dies. Poof. Gone. Just a wisp of smoke curling in the glass. You cling to the ladder, one hand white-knuckled on the post, the other shielding your eyes. The wind howls like a pack of wolves got lost in a pipe organ. You grit your teeth and wait for it to ease. That's the thing no one tells you about lamplighting. It's you versus the weather, and the weather almost always cheats. Rain soaks your matches, snow freezes your gloves, fog makes you lose your route. But wind is personal. Fringe historical tidbit. In coastal towns, some lamplighters would intentionally skip lamps during high winds, preferring a verbal scolding over a cracked skull. One infamous journal entry from 1837 reads, "I did not light number 14 as the wind was trying to murder me." You climb down, relight your torch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes, and mutter something very un-lamplighter-like to the clouds. You wait for a break in the gusts, then scramble back up and relight the wick. This time it holds. Just barely. Historians still argue whether gas street lamps were an improvement over oil, not just for their brightness, but for their reliability. Some claim gas lines made maintenance simpler. Others point out that a single leak could knock out an entire block, or send a lamplighter flying through the bakery window. Records are fuzzy, but there's at least one confirmed case of a gas explosion that launched a lantern clear across a street and ignited a passing cab driver's hat. You trudge on passing shuttered homes and locked shops. The occasional candle glows in a window, casting silhouettes onto curtains. Someone brushing their hair, someone praying, someone lifting a tankard and nodding off. And then you hear the most dreaded sound of all. Thwack! You pause. Another thwack. You brace yourself and turn. There, standing halfway down the block, are 3 children. Boys, maybe 10 or 12. Each holds a smooth rock. One's already winding up his next throw. Even in Lampman, one calls, "You missed a spot." You sigh and crouch behind your oil can. The rock misses and bounces harmlessly off a wall. The boys cackle. You'd think people would appreciate your work bringing light warding off the dark. But no. Lamplighters, it seems, are fair game for all kinds of mischief. Historical fact. Lamplighters were common targets for heckling pranks and the occasional slapstick assault. Children loved sneaking behind them to extinguish flames just after they were lit. Some cities even passed ordinances banning citizens from interfering with municipal flame technicians, which sounds far more dignified than the reality of dodging pebbles in the night. You hold your torch high, trying to look imposing. "Go home," you say in your firmest grown-up voice, before your mother notices you're gone. One of the boys hesitates, the others laugh again but retreat. You watch them vanish into the gloom, muttering. You relight the nearest lamp for good measure, then rub your temple with a soot-smudged hand. Your job isn't dangerous in the way a soldier's is, but there's a certain low-grade peril to being the only upright soul on the street at this hour, and it wears on you. You check your oil can, still half full. You double-check your torch, still flickering. You give your ladder a reassuring pat. It doesn't respond, but you like to think it understands. You're halfway down the block when you realize the wind is changing again. Not picking up this time, no, it's slowing. The gusts fade into steady breezes, and the torches burn brighter. The worst of the night might be behind you. You reach another lamp, one nestled near a row of workers' cottages. These lamps are lower to the ground and easier to reach. No ladder required. A small mercy. You light it quickly, and the flame responds obediently, flaring into a stable orange glow. You take a moment to admire your handiwork. From a nearby window, a curtain twitches. Someone's watching. You nod politely, unsure if they saw you or just heard your boots. Either way, you take comfort in the tiny human contact. Even if they're peeking from behind a curtain like you're a traveling salesman trying to sell soap made of lard. The street behind you is lit now. You pause and look back. It's a beautiful sight in a weary sort of way, each lamp like a quiet lighthouse in a sea of cobbles and bricks. You press on, already feeling the ache in your shoulders from the wind fight, but the stillness that follows worth it. You can hear your own footsteps again. No more howling, just the quiet hiss of your torch and the creak of your boots. 12 lamps down, 13 to go, and not a whisper of wind. Your torch burns steady now, and that feels like a luxury. The flame flickers, yes, but it no longer sputters or shrinks with every breath of night air. You cradle it gently, a little proud of the small, stubborn fire. It has survived the wind, the cold, and the jeering of underage stone throwers. Not unlike yourself. You round the bend into a quieter part of the neighborhood, a stretch of narrow lanes and slightly fancier doors. The kind with brass knockers and lace curtains. The lamps here are closer together, and the cobblestones are even as if someone had decided this block was worth smoothing out for walking humans instead of just carts and horses. And then you hear it. A soft shuffle, a squeak, a scurry. The rats are back! You freeze mid-step, your boot hovering just above the ground like you're afraid of stepping on something squishy and judgmental. The alley to your left is dark and smells vaguely of old potatoes. From within it comes the unmistakable rustle of fur and twitchy purpose. You try to pretend you didn't hear anything, just keep walking, but then you see one. It's bold, big, too plump, possibly unionized. It's sitting under the base of the next lamp, cleaning its face with one paw, like this is its root and you're the intruder. You pause, it pauses. There is a tense silence. Your torch crackles quietly between you. Historical fact. In many cities, rats were the unofficial mascots of the night. Lamplighters saw them more than anyone, and in a few towns it was rumored that they followed the lamplighter's route out of habit. Because where there's light, there's usually food nearby, or at least dropped crusts from people who felt safer walking under lit posts. Fringe tidbit. A 19th century Parisian lamplighter once wrote in a letter that the rats near Rue de la Vieille had expressions too knowing for beasts without language. He later tried to teach one to follow commands. It did not end well. The rat stole his whistle and ran off. You approach the lamp slowly. The rat lets call him. Reginald does not move. You cough politely, still nothing. You stomp. Reginald twitches one whisker, then waddles into the shadows with the unhurried dignity of a retiring butler. You whisper a cautious, "Thank you," and set up your ladder. This lamp is an older design. The hinges creak more, the casing is fogged with decades of smoke, and you can see the inside is thick with soot. You trim the wick, scraping at the buildup with your gloved fingers, and carefully pour a bit more oil in. The flame catches with a whoosh, sending a brief plume of smoke skyward. You cough, step back, and rub your watering eyes. Congratulations, your eyelashes are now sticky with oil. You mutter to yourself as you descend the ladder, kicking it lightly as you go to knock the worst of the grime loose. It sheds a puff of dust and something that might have once been part of a moth. You try not to inhale. As you move to the next lamp, the street narrows into an alley, one of those winding ones that seem to fold in on themselves like a trick in a funhouse. The light from your last flame barely reaches the entrance. You pause. You know this alley. It's the one other lamplighters told you about the don't bother, unless the mayor himself comes down one. But your instructions were clear tonight. All lamps, no exceptions. So naturally you go in. The alley swallows sound. Your boots fall quieter here, cushioned by a thin layer of damp leaves and discarded rags. The buildings are closed, the eaves almost touching. Above the strip of sky is no more than a ribbon, starless and tight. You find the lamp at the very end, wedged between a shuttered pawn shop and a wall covered in fading chalk graffiti. Someone has drawn a figure, a crooked stick man, with too many arms, and below it the words, "Still here." You tilt your head. Nice. You set the ladder, you climb, and then the wind returns. Not the gusty kind from earlier. This is more like a breath slow cold and oddly focused. You feel it on your neck, under your collar, like fingers brushing your skin. You turn, but there's nothing behind you. Just the graffiti, just the silence. You tell yourself it's your imagination. And maybe it is. You're tired, you're hungry, you've been lighting gas-filled glass boxes for 2 hours straight, while trying not to inhale mystery fumes or make eye contact with smug rodents. You strike a match. It flares, then dims. The wick is stubborn and the casing is slippery with condensation. You grit your teeth and hold the match longer this time. Finally, the flame catches. The alley glows, and for a moment everything looks wrong. The graffiti seems closer. The shadows seem thicker. And behind you, just a trick of the light, surely you think you see movement. Something ducking out of sight. You climb down faster than usual. Historians still argue whether lamplighters told ghost stories to pass the time, or if the job itself simply encouraged hallucinations. Sleep deprivation, exposure to gas fumes, and loneliness. Not a healthy cocktail. In one account, a lamplighter in Edinburgh claimed to see a child made of mist following him for an entire month. Another insisted he'd once spoken to a crow who answered in Latin. The debate continues. You exit the alley, the flickering light behind you struggling to keep its grip on the damp stones. You don't look back. Instead, you return to the main street, grateful for the open sky and the distant glow of the next lamp. Your torch is still burning, though it's starting to shorten. You'll need to trim and rewrap it soon, but for now, you press on. You have lit 14 lamps, there are 11 more to go. And while the rats may know you're new, at least you're still here. You walk with a little more purpose now, the kind that only comes from mild paranoia and muscle memory. The alley is behind you. The lamp is burning, hopefully still, and you're back in a stretch of town that, while hardly cheerful, at least smells less like ancient cabbage and existential dread. You pass a quiet corner with low brick buildings and shuttered storefronts. There's a crooked sign swinging in the breeze above one door. It reads, "Thimble and Thread Est." 1824, and it creaks in protest like it's as tired as you are. You glance around. No children with rocks. No alley-dwelling rats. No mysterious graffiti with too many limbs. You exhale. Things are looking up. And then you turn the corner into a courtyard. It's one of those city spaces people forget about, wedged between taller buildings. The kind you only see if you're sent here specifically. There's a lamp in the center, of course. There always is. You eye it. It's shorter than the others, surrounded by broken paving stones, laundry lines, and what looks suspiciously like a coat. Someone left behind. Months ago. You step in slowly. The courtyard is silent in a way that feels expectant, as though it's listening. You try to make as little noise as possible, just the soft squeak of your boots and the whisper of your torch. You glance around. Several windows overlook the space, but none are lit. Curtains hang like heavy eyelids. A single shutter creaks, then stills. You begin setting up your ladder when you notice something strange. This lamp is already glowing faintly. Not lit exactly, just pulsing. as if someone else tried to light it and gave up halfway. You frown and climb. At the top, you open the casing and lean in. The wick is partially charred, but the flame is barely alive, a flickering ember the size of a match head. You lean closer, shielding it with your hand. And then it flares. Not brightly, not dangerously, just suddenly. Enough to make you flinch. Historical fact. Some early gas lamps had irregular flow rates, especially in older parts of town. They'd pulse or sputter unpredictably due to clogged valves or pressure drops in the system. Lamplighters had to develop a kind of sixth sense for reading the flame. Too much pressure and the lamp might roar to life. Too little and it would simply sulk in the dark. You adjust the valve gently and the flame steadies. You trim the wick close to the casing and descend slowly. As your boots hit the ground, you hear something behind you. Not a voice, not a clear sound, just movement, a shuffle, a sigh. You turn, but there's no one there. You remind yourself this job is made of shadows. Sounds carry. Bricks echo oddly. And you've been awake too long to trust your ears. Still, you don't linger. You pass through the courtyard and onto the next street, glancing once over your shoulder. The lamp glows steadily now, casting soft light on the empty flagstones and the forgotten coat. You press on, trying to regain the rhythm you had earlier. Walk, stop, ladder, trim, oil, light, down, walk. It's almost meditative until it isn't. Because now you're entering a street that feels wrong. Not scary exactly, just quiet in a different way. The buildings are grander here, the doors taller, the stones cleaner, but no candles glow in windows. No footsteps echo ahead or behind. It feels like someone hit pause on the city. You approach the next lamp, and as you raise your torch, the wind picks up again. Not violently, just enough to make the flame flicker, just enough to make you hesitate. You climb anyway. The wind dances around your ears, teasing, whispering. The flame sputters, but you manage to light the lamp. You hold it there a moment longer just to be sure, and then carefully close the casing. You pause at the top of the ladder. From this height, you can see the rooftops, the chimney pots, the crooked lines of the houses. And beyond that, the moon full and pale, casting a light that makes the city glow in silver and blue. It's beautiful in its own desolate way. You take it in for a moment, then descend. As you pack your tools, a door creaks open nearby. You freeze. From the corner of your eye, you see an elderly woman in a shawl peering out from her doorway. She says nothing, just watches. You nod politely. She does not nod back. After a long pause, she closes the door again. Well, that's city manners for you. Fringe tidbit. In some towns, elderly residents would leave out small tokens for lamplighters, bits of food, or warm drinks in winter. But in others, they'd just scowl from the window if you missed a spot. One lamplighter wrote Mrs. Greaves of number 11 throws a turnip if the lamp by her stoop smokes. I do not deserve this. You glance back. The lamp is holding steady, the torch in your hand is getting smaller, the wick shorter. You'll need to replace it soon, but not yet. You head for the next lamp. It's an older one set near a water pump that still creaks in the breeze. You climb light and descend in one fluid motion. You're getting good at this, or perhaps just numb. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were seen as public servants or glorified janitors. They were indispensable, yes, but often invisible figures who moved through the night, doing their work quietly, then disappeared again before anyone really noticed. You pause beneath the newly lit lamp. The light spills onto the pump handle, the stones, the iron fence behind you. It makes everything look cleaner, almost polished. You smile. Then you hear it again. Footsteps, this time slow, deliberate, behind you. You turn quickly, but the street is empty. No wind, no rats, no children. Just the flickering light of your lamps and the long shadow of your own figure stretched across the stones. You exhale your breath, fogging the air. Maybe it was your own steps echoing, maybe not. Either way, you keep moving. You've now lit 17 lamps. 8 to go. And someone seems to be keeping pace with you. You grip your torch a little tighter now. Its flame dances low, still there, but tired, like it's as weary of this shift as you are. The tip is darkened and curled, the wick frayed and sputtering just slightly every few steps. You'll need to tend to it soon, but not just yet. You've got another lamp ahead, one of the forgotten ones. The map of your route, sketched clumsily on a creased sheet stuffed in your coat, shows a crooked back lane wedged between two tenements. That's where your next flame is needed. You turn down the alley. The moment you step in, the air changes. It's still. Thick, damp, the kind of stillness that's not peaceful but neglected. You walk slower, boots sinking into a layer of rotting leaves and old paper. The buildings on either side are tall and close, with balconies that hang over your path, like elbows leaning in on a secret. Laundry flaps above forgotten shirts and sheets swaying in the darkness, absorbing more moisture than sunlight. No one lives here, or if they do, they're not interested in light. This is one of the forgotten corners. Every city has them little enclaves where people end up when they can't be anywhere else. Places where streets weren't designed so much as accidentally formed between competing structures. Corners no one mapped properly and which few visit on purpose. You spot the lamp near the end of the lane half consumed by ivy and grime. The glass is cracked. A single dead moth floats inside wings pressed against the soot. You frown. Someone clearly gave up on this one a long time ago. Still, the record says it's your responsibility tonight. You set up your ladder. As you climb, you glance at the windows above. Most are boarded, but one curtain twitches. Just a little. You freeze, the curtain stills. You stare a moment longer, then return to the job. The casing groans as you open it. The wick inside is dry and brittle, barely attached. You cut it free and replace it with a fresh piece from your pouch. You pour a cautious trickle of oil, just enough to burn for a few hours. You strike a match. It doesn't light. You strike another. Still nothing. The wind is minimal here, but the air feels strange, too damp, too heavy. You strike again, and finally the match flares. You raise the torch, coax the wick to catch, and breathe a sigh of relief as the flame spreads. The lamp lights, and now the alley is not so forgotten. It glows softly. The laundry above looks almost clean. The stones underfoot gleam faintly. But it also means you can now see further down the alley, and you wish you couldn't. At the far end, just before the turn, stands a figure. Or at least, you think it's a figure. It's motionless, tall, slightly hunched, blurred by distance and shadow. You blink. It's gone. You descend the ladder faster than usual. You know better than to run. Running attracts attention from children, from watchmen, from the city itself. But you walk briskly, torch held out like a priest's candle in a long-forgotten ritual. You're back in the open now, but the open feels different after the alley. The breeze on your face is refreshing and unpleasant all at once, like stepping into a room where someone just stopped crying. You shake off the thought and keep moving. You're now entering a part of town that's rarely patrolled. The residents here are night shift workers, insomniacs, and people who don't enjoy questions. A tailor's window glows with lamplight where a wiry man is hunched over a table, snipping thread with surgical precision. He doesn't look up as you pass. He doesn't look up as you reach the next lamp and it's missing. Not gone entirely, just leaning. Someone has bent it backward and the casing is half shattered. You frown. There's no way to light it safely like this. You mutter under your breath and make a note on your route card, "Das year 18 vandalized." Unsafe. Needs repair. It won't be repaired. Not for weeks. Maybe months. But at least your conscience is clear. Historical fact. Lamplighters often had to report damaged fixtures, but repair crews were frequently slow to respond, especially in poorer districts. Some lamplighters carried spare parts or makeshift tools to rig a lamp into working condition. Others simply skipped them, praying their absence wouldn't be noticed by anyone with authority. Or teeth. You move on to the next working lamp, and this one behaves itself. You climb, you trim, you pour, you light. And for a moment, the rhythm returns. Fringe tidbit. In certain Italian cities, it was customary for lamplighters to whistle as they worked. Not for joy, but as a subtle way of letting people know where they were and to avoid spooking the residents. One Venetian account says that when a lamplighter stopped whistling, people knew to bolt their doors. You consider trying it, but your lips are too dry, and honestly, you don't want to draw attention. You light 3 more lamps in quick succession, no issues, no interruptions. The pattern is comforting, predictable, you're back in control. Until you enter the next block. You notice it before you even see it. That change in the air again, it's colder here. Not weather cold, memory cold. This is the block where years ago a child disappeared. Or so the tavern tales say. No one ever proved it. Some say she was taken by criminals. Others whisper of darker things. You don't believe in ghost stories, mostly. But you light the lamp faster here. You don't climb. You reach from the ground, stretching torch angled awkwardly. You spill some oil. You don't care. You light it. You move on. Historians still argue whether tales of vanishing children and cursed lampposts were based on fact, or simply Victorian urban legends. Some believe such stories were meant to warn children home before dark. Others suggest they were psychological projections, fears born from rapid industrial change. Isolation and street gas. You just want to finish your shift. You've lit 20 lamps now, just 5 remain. You stop for a moment beside a shop with dusty windows and an iron gate. You rest your back against the wall. You breathe. And then you hear something above you. A window squeaking open. A cough. Then silence. You don't look up. You simply whisper, "Just doing my job," and walk on. The air has shifted again, but this time it's not from chill or shadow, it's the light. The moon has fully risen now, hanging heavy and silver above the rooftops like some ancient coin forgotten by the sky. It bathes the cobblestones in a pale glow, just bright enough to compete with the flicker of your lamps. You pause for a moment, torch in hand, to take it in. The scene is almost beautiful, almost. The oil-gloss stones gleam under moonlight. A thin mist curls along the edges of the street. The newly lit lamps cast buttery halos that stretch toward the corners, but never quite touch. It's a moment of quiet so profound you find yourself holding your breath. Then a thought occurs: this moonlight isn't helping you, it's hurting your paycheck. Historical fact. Lamplighters in many cities were only paid for the lamps they lit literally per lamp per night. And if a lamp didn't need to be lit, like on a full moon night when the streets were already bright, some supervisors would dock pay for unnecessary ignition. In some towns, lamplighters were instructed to skip every third lamp on bright moonlit evenings to conserve gas or oil. Naturally, this led to complaints from shopkeepers who didn't care about the moon's glow, only that their storefront wasn't lit like their neighbors. You sigh, considering the irony. Here you are competing with a celestial body for job security. You shake your head at the heavens and mutter, "Don't make me write you up." You approach your next lamp. It stands directly under the full moon, the glass already half filled with soft silver light. It almost feels like a provocation. Go ahead, try to make this look better. You set your ladder and climb. At the top, you strike your match and touch the wick. The flame flares to life, warm and golden, distinctly richer than the cold moonlight above. It wins, if barely. You adjust the valve slightly, close the casing, and descend with the satisfaction of someone who just beat the cosmos in a staring contest. As you pack up your tools and head to the next lamp, you think about the strange relationship between man-made and natural light. For most of history, the moon was the only streetlight. Entire schedules revolved around its phases. Markets stayed open later during full moons. Thieves planned their movements according to its cycles. Even farmers timed certain plantings with its rise and fall. Fringe tidbit. In 19th century rural England, some people believed that moonlight could bleach clothing if left hanging out overnight. As a result, they'd avoid drying laundry during full moons, not because it didn't work, but because they feared ghost whitening, a phenomenon blamed for shirts going mysteriously pale and feeling wrong on the skin. Scientists, to no one's surprise, blamed dew and overactive imaginations. You walk beneath the full moon now, your own shadow keeping pace beside you, elongated and distorted. It doesn't flicker like the shadows from the lamps. It glides smooth and solemn. For a moment, you pretend it's a companion. A fellow lamplighter, one who doesn't complain, doesn't drop the oil, doesn't flinch at strange noises. You name him Edgar. Edgar, the perfect co-worker. You approach another lamp. This one's near a clockmaker's shop with tiny gears in the windows, and clocks ticking in faint disharmony behind the glass. You light the flame quickly, barely noticing the movements of your hands. It's mechanical now. You've become part of the night's own rhythm. The moonlight continues to cast its pale glow, and for a while it's hard to tell where your lamps begin and it ends. The two blend together into something softer than either alone. Historians still argue whether moonlight ever truly lessened the demand for street lamps. Some point to budget reports slashing fuel use during full moons. Others argue that urban growth quickly outpaced any reliance on natural light. As cities became more dangerous, more crowded, and more frantic, the human-controlled flame offered something the moon never could: predictability. Control. Reassurance. You've got 3 lamps left now. You stop to adjust your torch, it's nearly gone. You trim the wick twist in a new cloth end and strike another match. The fresh flame flares bright, nearly blinding for a second, before it settles into a steady glow. Torch refreshed, you feel a new kind of calm. Not peace exactly, but confidence. Like you've survived the worst of the shift. The next lamp is near a small square, one of those forgotten urban pockets with a single bench and an old fountain that hasn't worked since someone threw a shoe into it. As you light the lamp, your eyes wander across the square and then freeze, because someone is sitting on the bench. You hadn't noticed them before. They weren't there when you arrived. Or maybe they were. It's hard to tell with the shadows and the moonlight and the lamp's freshly lit glow. The figure doesn't move, doesn't speak, just sits. You consider saying something. Evening. Or maybe nice night for pretending you don't exist. But you say nothing. Instead, you nod politely to the silent form on the bench, step backward, and leave the square without looking again. Your torch crackles, the night stretches on. You light the second-to-last lamp, this one under a wrought iron balcony filled with wilting plants. The flame catches on the first try. You don't even bother to adjust the wick. It's good enough. You glance up once at the balcony, half expecting to see someone watching. But there's only the sagging green of forgotten vines. And now there's only one lamp left, the final post of your shift. You quicken your step not because you're scared or cold or tired, though you are all those things, but because there's a strange satisfaction in knowing the end is near. And the moon. It's still there, quiet, unbothered, watching. You give it a tired smile. All right, you went on ambience, you mutter, but I've got warmer light. You're almost there. Only one lamp remains between you and the end of your shift, a single soot-streaked post standing crooked at the edge of a narrow lane called Widdershins Court. Yes, really. That's the actual name. You once asked why it was called that, and an older lamplighter replied, because if you walk through it clockwise, you come out feeling like Tuesday. You chose not to pursue clarification, but before you make the final climb, there's a tradition. A small detour. Something unspoken but common among lamplighters of your kind. The tavern check-in. Just down the lane is the Fox and Hourglass, a sagging old pub with stained glass windows, low beams, and the kind of damp smell that seeps into your socks, even if you never go inside. It's not open to the public this late, only to certain city workers on the night shift. The rules are simple. Knock softly, ask for tea, and don't sit in Old Barker's chair. You still don't know who Old Barker is. You've never seen him. But you also don't want to tempt fate. You step inside greeted by a room that's warm in the way only an old pub can be. Part heat, part baked in a beer breath, and part body temperature from centuries of previous occupants. A small coal fire crackles in a hearth with a brass guard. There are two others here, lamplighters like yourself. One is dozing with his head on the table. The other stirs his tea with a spoon he brought from home. Late one tonight, the spoonbringer asks, not looking up. You nod, one left. He grunts. That'll be the one by the apothecary. Filthy thing. Try not to lean on it. You sit momentarily, not for long. Just enough to feel human again. Someone pushes a chipped mug toward you. It contains something vaguely herbal. Possibly tea, possibly broth, possibly both. You sip it anyway. Historical fact. In many cities, lamplighters had informal check-in spots during long shifts, often back rooms of pubs, print shops, or cart sheds. They weren't official rest stops, but everyone knew about them. Some cities even designated warming houses with hot bricks and dried bread to help workers stay alert during cold nights. Fringe tidbit. In Prague, lamplighters were known to share gossip via scrawled notes left inside hollow lampposts. One such note discovered during restoration work in 1974 read, Lamp 16 eats matches. Tell Yarek. Your colleague, the one with the mug spoon, starts telling a story. You half listen as he describes something odd he saw near the gasworks. Looked like a person, but I don't know. Moved like it didn't know how to have knees. You nod politely the way one does when someone says something mildly unhinged but not impolite. You've heard these stories before. Everyone who works the night shift has at least one tale that ends with... But when I turned around, it was gone. You're finishing the last of your tea when someone new arrives. He's tall, cloaked, and you've never seen him before. No one greets him. No one asks where his route is. He just walks to the corner, pulls up a stool, and sits in silence. You decide it's time to go. Back outside, the cold bites sharper after the warmth. Your torch is still burning, though dimly now, a tired flame doing its best impression of your spirit. You tighten your coat, adjust your belt, and head towards your last lamp. The lane narrows as you approach Widdershins Court. The buildings here lean aggressively. Drain pipes bend like elbows. And somewhere a shutter bangs in the wind with a slow, rhythmic clack, like a forgotten metronome. There it is, the final lamp. It stands crooked, its base slightly sunk into the paving stones. The glass is fogged from the inside, and the casing is dented like someone tried to headbutt it in 1842 and left a permanent mark. You set your ladder. The wood creaks under your weight. Your hands, sore and cracked, hold the torch like a relic. You strike your last match. The flame flares, it catches, you guide it in. And suddenly the entire lane seems to hold its breath. The light spills out in a soft arc. It catches on the stone walls, the shuttered windows, the broken guttering. For the first time tonight, your job feels complete. Like a full circuit has closed. Historians still argue about the psychological effect of lamplighting, whether the act of literally pushing back darkness had deeper symbolic value for workers. Was it comforting? Was it isolating? Did it grant a quiet kind of power? The documents disagree, but those who did it, they always said the last lamp felt different. You descend slowly. Your ladder folds with a gentle snap. You give the post a firm pat, one part goodbye, one part please don't explode later. And then, just as you turn to go, a voice. Hey, you spin around. The lane is empty. Just the sound of dripping water. Just the soft hiss of your last lamp. You stand still, waiting, listening. Nothing. You exhale, long, slow. You whisper, "Not tonight," and walk on. 25 lamps, all lit. The city sleeps behind you, glowing faintly in the moonlight. And you disappear into the shadows. Just like every lamplighter before you. You'd think after 25 lamps things would calm down. That the work would settle into a rhythm of quiet torchlight and gentle pacing like a lullaby on cobblestones. But tonight is not interested in offering you a lullaby. Tonight wants to play one last trick, an old gas-fueled game of roulette. Because now it's time for the gas valve check. You trudge toward the junction box located behind a fishmonger's, a small brick hut with a padlocked iron door, and a noticeable smell. Not of fish surprisingly, but of warm, metal-wet dust, and the particular tang of old gas lines. It smells like something that's not supposed to be disturbed. But you've got orders. This shift includes a safety check on valve line 3, a crusty network of pipes that feed a dozen of the lamps you just lit. Technically, this isn't in your pay grade. But budget cuts have meant that Lamplighter now also includes oil porter rodent discourager and assistant gas inspector. You consider asking for a raise, but remember that you're paid by the lamp, not by the explosion risk. You unlock the gate and step inside the box. It's not spacious, or dry, or particularly well lit. You lift your torch and immediately regret it, because you see the valve rusted damp and looking slightly crooked, like it's been through things and hasn't yet recovered emotionally. Historical fact. Gas valves in the 19th century were hand-operated and often located in awkward, hard-to-access locations. Many required special tools to turn tools that lamplighters sometimes had to share trade, or in desperate cases fashion out of coal shovels or the heel of a boot. You pull out the wrench from your kit and give the valve a cautious nudge. It doesn't move. You try again. There's a groan, a slight give, and then hiss. You freeze. It's not a loud hiss, but it's the wrong kind. Too thin, too sharp. The kind that doesn't mean normal gas flow. The kind that means you should probably not be holding a flame right now. You back out of the valve house, slowly, gently closing the door behind you. Then with the calmest fake composure you can muster, you walk 20 paces away before fully exhaling. Fringe tidbit. In 1861, a lamplighter in Berlin famously ignited a leaky junction box, resulting in a small crater, the loss of 3 street lamps, and the discovery that horses are surprisingly good at climbing stairs when scared enough. He survived, reportedly declaring, "Let's not do that again." You double-check your torch. The flame is still there, flickering innocently unaware that it almost became a fireball. You feel for the whistle on your belt, useless broken ornamental. Still, you give it a half-hearted puff. No sound, just a wheeze like a deflating goose. You sigh. There's not much more you can do about the gas valve now. You make a note to report it at the depot, and then you move on. But your nerves, they're awake now, sharpened. So it's no surprise that when you pass under the next lit lamp and hear something above you, something small and metallic, clinking against a pipe, you jump. You spin on your heel, holding the torch like a sword. But there's nothing there. Just the steady hiss of the lamp and the soft glow falling on a wet patch of bricks. Then plink, again. A drop of water this time, you realize, just condensation rolling off a gutter. You force yourself to laugh. It sounds like a cough pretending to be brave. Historians still argue whether the psychological strain of night shifts in 19th century cities was fully understood. Some claim lamplighters were respected for their endurance. Others suggest their mental toll went unacknowledged. A handful of records suggest that longtime lamplighters developed a unique kind of paranoia, seeing flickers in windows, hearing footsteps, suspecting gas leaks that weren't there. Or worse, missing the ones that were. You walk faster now, leaving the valve behind, trying to shake off the sense of being watched. Maybe it's just the adrenaline. Maybe it's residual gas fumes. You're not ruling anything out at this point. You arrive at a small triangle of intersecting streets, one of those leftover corners, where the city builders clearly gave up, and decided 3 directions was better than 2. There's a lamp here too, and you're not entirely sure if it's on your route. But it's dark, and that bothers you. You glance at your card. No mention of it. Still a dark corner like this, it's asking for trouble. You set the ladder without thinking, light your torch again carefully, and climb. The lamp housing is clean, newer than the others, maybe even recently replaced. But there's no flame inside, and the wick is bone dry. You trim and relight it anyway. When the flame catches, it lights up the intersection like a stage. For a moment, the whole city seems to pause. You're standing at the center of 3 roads' torch, In hand, your shadow cast in triplicate across the stones. You descend slowly, acutely aware that you're the brightest thing in this part of town. And that brightness, it draws attention. You hear the first set of footsteps behind you. Slow, deliberate, not hurried, not stealthy, just present. You turn, empty. Then another pair, ahead of you this time, same pace. You spin again, nothing. The torch sputters briefly and the lamp overhead flickers just once. You tell yourself it's just echoes, just wind, just city things. You whisper one more block and keep walking. The footsteps do not follow, but they do not stop either. You tighten your grip on the torch and keep your eyes forward. The stone underfoot is slick now, not with rain, but with that perpetual late-night dampness that creeps in from the gutters and seeps from the walls. You're not sure whether it's dew fog or just the city sweating in its sleep. The route winds downhill, now taking you toward a row of tenement houses stacked like books on a crooked shelf. The buildings here are patched and repatched, brick over wood over plaster, and all of it over years of soot. The lamps hang lower on this stretch, close enough to touch from a doorway, which unfortunately means they're also close enough for your next problem. Children. You hear them before you see them, the high-pitched laughter, the huff of fast breath, the slap of bare feet on stone. You round the corner and spot them, a gang of 3 boys shirtless despite the cold, grinning like small goblins who just invented chaos. One of them holds a stick, another has a piece of slate chalk. The third is crouched below the very lamp you were headed toward, blowing gently at the glass casing, with exaggerated concentration. Even in Lampy, the one with the stick calls already backing away. Missed this one, you did. You sigh, not again. The boy crouching below the lamp lights a match. You lurch forward, too late to stop him, but early enough to watch him fail. The match fizzles in the wind and he lets out a frustrated huff. The other 2 laugh and scatter like leaves. Historical fact. In many 19th century cities, lamplighters were regularly harassed by children, especially boys who viewed putting out freshly lit lamps as a kind of sport. The practice became so widespread in parts of London and Boston that local constables were tasked specifically with finding children caught interfering with municipal illumination. Fringe tidbit. In one documented case, a boy was fined 3 pennies for snuffing out 14 lamps with a wet broom. He became something of a folk hero in his neighborhood, known affectionately as Smoky Jack. You approach the lamp and check the damage. The casing is smudged with fingerprints and the glass is fogged from someone's breath. The flame inside is still alive if weak. You adjust the wick and trim the edges, making it stand taller in the darkness. The light brightens just a touch, chasing back the last of the boy's laughter echoing down the block. You wipe the glass with your sleeve. It doesn't help much, but you feel better for doing it. The next few lamps pass without trouble. You work efficiently now, each movement smoother, each climb less hesitant. You're in that strange twilight of exhaustion and fluency, where your muscles are too tired to argue and your hands remember what your brain no longer needs to tell them. One lamp tucked into a narrow cranny beside a greengrocer's has half a bird nest in it. You sigh, remove the twigs, and gently place them on the ledge beside the post. You whisper an apology to whatever sparrow tried to call this home. Another lamp won't open at all. The latch is rusted shut. You attempt it twice, then scrawl a note in your pocketbook. Und du hast 22 stuck again. That's the 3rd time this month. You think about carving it into the metal with your trimmer. And then you reach your last 3 lamps. This stretch runs behind a series of boarding houses, a dim back lane that smells of ash and wet wood. No one walks here unless they must. The stone is darker, the air quieter. The first lamp is at the bend next to an old well no longer in use. You light it quickly, the flame catching with unexpected ease. You step back and notice for the first time how much the glow changes the street. Without it, the lane looked like an abandoned thought. With it, it's a place. Not a good place, but a real one. The second to last lamp is harder, not because of weather, not because of height, because of the man. You spot him seated under the post as you approach. He's slumped against the wall, knees drawn up, hat pulled low. You think at first he's asleep, but as you raise your torch, he speaks. "Don't bother," he mutters. You pause. "It won't stay lit." His voice is raspy but not drunk, not angry, just tired. You wait unsure what to say. "It's a bad post," he continues, takes the light and eats it. You move slowly, watching him as you set your ladder. He doesn't move, doesn't look up. You climb, you light it. It holds. You look down. The man's still there, his face in shadow. "Huh," he says quietly. "Guess it likes you." You descend heart hammering. You nod. He doesn't nod back. You leave him sitting there, the new light casting his face in partial glow. One eye watches you go. Historians still debate whether those who lingered under lampposts were drawn to the light or to the illusion of safety it offered. In cities with little public shelter, lit corners became unofficial resting places for the lost of the drunk, the desperate. Lamplighters knew these faces well, though most never spoke. You turn the last corner. There it is, your final lamp. It stands at the edge of a crumbling stairwell that leads to a lower courtyard, one you're not keen to explore. The lamppost is old, the casing cracked, the glass fogged. You've had to relight it 3 times in previous shifts. You're already bracing yourself for a struggle. But this time, it lights on the first try. You watch it glow, a soft, flickering star above the silent bricks. Then from somewhere deep in the courtyard you hear it. Footsteps, but not coming toward you. Walking away, like something that's finally satisfied. You don't chase the sound. That's a lesson every lamplighter learns. Eventually, some noises are just part of the city breathing, and some are better left unanswered. You take one last look at the newly lit lamp. It holds steady, the flame wavering slightly but firm. It lights the top of the stairwell and little else, casting long shadows that vanish into the depths below. You're not going down there, that's not your job. You turn back onto the main street and for a brief moment it hits you, the lamps are done. All of them. You've survived the route, the wind, the laughter, the rats, the cracked valves, and at least one man who may or may not have been entirely real. And now it's time for the ritual you look forward to most, the watchman's hut. It's not fancy. Nothing in this city is not at your pay grade. But there's a little booth near the edge of the square, tucked between 2 buildings that once housed something important, and now mostly house echoes. The hut's just wide enough for a stool, a teapot, and the smell of 20 years of pipe tobacco. It's also warm. You push open the door and are met by a creak, a musty draft, and the unmistakable odor of sleep in progress. The watchman is already there as expected. Name's Hal, big guy. Wears 2 coats and 3 scarves and somehow always looks cold. He doesn't look up when you enter. Tea's in the pot, he says without moving. You nod and pour yourself a cup from the dented tin kettle on the tiny iron stove. It tastes like herbs, metal, and survival. You sit on the second stool, barely more than a box with a cushion. Quiet night, you ask. Hal grunts. Couple of drunks arguing by the bridge. Kid fell in the canal. Did they fish him out? Eventually. You both sip. The silence is companionable. Comfortable, even. The city outside is quieter now. The witching hour has passed, and all that remains are the final embers of darkness curling around the corners. Historical fact. Most cities employed night watchmen alongside lamplighters. While the lamplighter lit the way, the watchman was supposed to patrol, prevent crime, and keep the peace. In practice, many watchmen spent their shifts napping, smoking, or chatting with lamplighters. Their presence was symbolic as much as practical proof that someone somewhere was awake and watching. Fringe tidbit. In certain towns, lamplighters and watchmen would exchange coded knocks on doors, as they passed both to confirm safety and, in some cases, to discreetly deliver messages. One old code book from Amsterdam includes phrases like 1 long, 2 short. Jeunhorks don't light lamp 4 and knock twice, then whistle. Horst free bread behind the bakery. Hal speaks again. You forget a block. You blink. What? Merchant Lane. Someone said it's dark. You frown. I lit every lamp on that route. I checked the card. Still, Hal shrugs, might want to swing back. You exhale and stand. The tea barely warmed your hands. You nod to Hal and step back outside the air, instantly biting again. You consider ignoring it. You consider writing it up and going home. But something nags at you, a professional itch that says a dark street. Even one you lit shouldn't be left uninvestigated. You make your way back toward Merchant Lane. The city is even quieter now, the silence so deep it feels structural. Like the buildings themselves are asleep. You pass by the bakery where a low glow flickers in the oven room. You pass the barber's shop, the striped pole still for the night. You pass an alley where someone has left a single shoe turned upside down. And then you reach Merchant Lane. Every lamp is out. Not dim, not flickering. Extinguished. All 8 of them. You stand at the mouth of the street torch, in hand heart, suddenly hammering against your ribs like it wants to leave first and explain itself later. This shouldn't be possible. The lamps were full. You lit them yourself. You saw the flames take. You step into the street. Each lamppost stands like a sentry that failed its watch. Their shadows stretch long across the stones, unlit and unwelcoming. The windows here are shuttered. No candlelight, no movement, just darkness. You relight your torch, but the flame seems smaller here, more hesitant. Like it knows it's not entirely welcome. You reach the first lamp. The glass is cold. Inside the wick is soaked with oil but unburned, as if no match ever touched it. You frown. You check the second, same. The third, the fourth. You stop after the 5th turning slowly in place. You're the only soul here, you're sure of it. And yet, you feel watched. Not by a person, not in the usual way. By the dark itself. Historians still argue whether lamplighters ever faced organized sabotage. Some records suggest pranksters or criminals would douse lamps to create dark paths for theft. Others claim religious sects believed artificial light disrupted the natural hours of sin and repentance. And then, of course, there are the stories, the ones with no footnotes, just warnings. You relight one of the lamps. It takes. The flame rises. You move to the second. It takes two. You continue slowly, carefully watching over your shoulder between each post. You don't hear footsteps, but you do feel presence. By the eighth lamp, the street is aglow once more. You look back, and for a split second, you see someone standing under the first post. Not moving, not speaking, just watching. You blink. They're gone. You step out of Merchant Lane without turning around again. Whatever the dark wanted tonight, it didn't get it. You're still here. The lamps are lit. And the sun can't be far off now. The moment you step off Merchant Lane, the air feels lighter barely, but enough to make your shoulders ease by an inch. You don't look back. The street is lit again, and that's all that matters. Whether it stays that way, that's not your concern anymore. That's tomorrow night's problem, or someone else's. You retrace your steps through the still slumbering city, the torch in your hand reduced to a stubby ember. It burns low and orange, casting a modest glow no wider than your own shadow. You don't bother trimming it. There's only one thing left to do. The depot. It's the end point of every lamplighter's route. A squat stone building near the edge of the square, tucked behind a horse stable and across from a shuttered print shop. It smells of kerosene, cold iron, and tired men. A single lamp hangs over the door, a gas lamp, same as the ones you've spent all night tending. Except this one burns constantly, even during the day. No one turns it off. It's a symbol in a way. The heart of the network. The flame that doesn't sleep. You push open the heavy wooden door and step inside. Warmth greets you not from a fire, but from the lingering body heat of others who came before you. The walls are lined with cubbies for gear hooks, for coats, and a desk, where a clerk will sit in the morning to review route cards and complaints from grumpy shopkeepers who swear their lamp was missed whether it was or not. The depot is empty, as it should be. Only the earliest risers and the latest returners ever see it this quiet. You move to the ledger table and open the book. The ink is half frozen, the quill already stiff with dry residue, but you manage to scrawl your initials, your route number, and the time. You add a note in the margin, Merchant Lane relit. All 8 extinguished. Cause unknown. You underline it not out of anger, but out of fatigue. Someone else can investigate. You've done your part. Historical fact. Lamplighters often kept physical logs, either personal journals or official ledgers, documenting their route's issues with lamps and neighborhood oddities. These records have become invaluable for urban historians, offering strange but detailed snapshots of 19th century city life. One entry from 1884 reads simply, "Lamp 37 humming again. Not wind." Fringe tidbit. In a lesser-known experiment in Philadelphia, lamplighters were asked to rank their lamps from easiest to least favorite. One lamp located at a dead-end alley was so universally loathed that its post was nicknamed Ol' Miserable. It was later removed after 3 workers refused to continue servicing it without hazard pay. You unbuckle your toolkit and hang it on its peg pole trimmer, empty oil can. Your gloves come off next, revealing hands red and raw and bearing faint outlines where soot met skin. Your boots follow, dropped in a metal tray already half full with melted snow and regret. For a moment, you just stand there in your socks, staring at the wall. The silence is so complete that your own breath feels loud. You step outside again. The city is changing. Not fast, never fast, but undeniably. A faint pale smudge stains the eastern sky. The lamps still glow, but now they compete with the first honest traces of dawn. It's a losing battle for them. But that's the job. You walk toward the square, past the silent butchers, past the old fountain, past the shuttered window, where the woman with the shawl might be watching, or might never have existed. You pause beneath one of your own lamps, the 5th or 6th you lit tonight. It flickers gently, not struggling, just adjusting, surrendering to morning. You stand there, head tilted, watching the dance of flame against glass. You wonder how long it will be before someone walks this street today. How many passers-by will look up and notice the lamp you trimmed refilled and coaxed into warmth? Probably none. And that's all right. This job was never about being seen. It was about keeping the dark at bay quietly, steadily, again and again. Even when no one's watching. Especially then. You resume your walk, winding toward your quarters, a narrow stairwell behind the apothecary, a thin mattress under the rafters. You'll sleep until midday. You'll dream of ladders and shadows and the clink of glass doors. You pass the tailor's shop where the same man is still awake, still cutting thread perhaps. He doesn't look up. You pass the empty bench in the square. You do not see anyone sitting there now. Just the lamp, still burning. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were ever truly part of the city's memory or simply ghosts with names. Their work kept the night from swallowing the streets, but their faces rarely made it into photographs. No statues were built. No holidays declared. But their footprints, they're there. In the glow of the first shop window to open, in the safety of a returning cart, in the silence where once there was nothing. You reach your door, unlock it, step inside, and just before closing it, you glance back. The last lamp you lit, number 25, is visible at the end of the block. Still glowing, still holding the night at arm's length. For just a little longer. Your sleep is short, shallow, and heavy. It comes in like a fog, thick and immediate, draping itself over your limbs the moment your boots hit the floor beside your cot. You remember falling into bed still in your undershirt, with one sock on and soot still beneath your fingernails. You remember closing your eyes. And then nothing. Until you're yanked awake by the sound of boots on stairs. Thump, thump, pause. Thump, thump. You sit up, heart pounding. For a second you forget where you are. It's still dark mostly. The window by your bed lets in a small sliver of blue-gray morning, just enough to catch the edge of your coat hanging on the wall and the curl of smoke rising from the stovepipe across the street. The footsteps stop. You hold your breath. Then a voice gruff familiar. Just me, calls Hal the watchman. Depot says you left a note. You relax, barely. You call back through the door voice hoarse from Sleep Merchant Lane. There's a pause. Then that's so. You swing your legs out of bed, every joint protesting. You shuffle to the door and open it a crack. Hal stands on the stairwell, wrapped in his usual 3 layers and smelling faintly of pipe smoke and boiled potatoes. Saw it myself, you say. Lit 'em, came back. They were all out. Hal scratches his chin. Valve trouble. Nope. Wicks were dry like they'd never been lit. He chews on that thought, then nods slowly. Happens once in a while. Old pipes, cold spots. His voice lowers almost conspiratorial, or something else. You raise an eyebrow. Something like what? He shrugs. City remembers things, old corners, bad air. I just don't walk merchant after midnight. You'll learn that too. You nod slowly, not because you agree, but because that's the kind of thing people say when a man with boots heavier than yours gives a warning he believes in. Historical fact. Superstitions among lamplighters varied by city. Some avoided certain streets after specific hours, citing unlucky flame, while others refused to relight a lamp more than twice in one night, believing the third time would invite something that didn't want light. These beliefs, though rarely documented formally, were passed down between workers like heirlooms. Fringe tidbit. In Warsaw, it was said that one specific street lamp near a church would always extinguish at 3:03 a.m., regardless of conditions. Several lamplighters tried to keep it lit. All failed. The lamp was eventually removed, not for superstition, but because the city clerk was tired of paperwork. Hal leaves with a parting grunt and you close the door behind him. You splash water on your face, scrub your hands, and stretch until your spine cracks in 6 places. Then you suit up again. Because even though your shift is done, you've still got errands. The city doesn't pay well, and what little you earn disappears quickly. Lamp oil isn't cheap, boots wear thin, and matches, especially good dry ones, vanish like dreams after waking. You pull your coat tight and head into the street. This time you walk with the sun. The city looks different in daylight. Smaller, quieter, less haunted. The same alley where a curtain moved in the shadows now smells of bread and wood smoke. A girl sweeps the steps of a bakery. A boy leads a goat around a puddle. The tailor's shop now buzzes with customers and polite complaints about buttons. You find yourself revisiting your route but reversed tracing your night's work in the light of morning. You check the posts. The lamps are still lit, though some now flicker in protest against the brightening sky. One by one, you reach up and extinguish them. This is part of the job too, snuffing out the flames. Daylight is the master now. You lift the glass reach with your rod and with one small motion pinch the light out. The lamp goes dark, the post cools, you move on. There's a strange poetry to it, a kind of farewell. One by one the flames fade, and you begin to notice things you didn't see before. A hat wedged behind a crate. Chalk scribbles on a wall, more of those odd stick figures, some crossed out, now others newly drawn. A set of small footprints leading to a door that doesn't belong to any house you remember. You stop beneath the lamp near the courtyard, the one where you saw movement, the one with the smudged graffiti and the forgotten coat. The coat is gone. The graffiti remains. Only now beneath it someone has drawn a small lantern in white chalk. You stare at it a moment, then move on. Historians still argue whether lamplighters contributed to public order or merely gave the illusion of it. The debate remains unresolved, but one thing's certain: someone had to walk those streets, carry that flame light the way. Whether the city noticed didn't really matter. You finish the last lamp on your route just as the sun breaks fully over the rooftops. The city stirs. The bakery bell rings. Church windows reflect gold. Your job for now is done. You return to the depot, log your extinguishments, and hang your coat. You head home. You sleep again, this time properly. And somewhere in the heart of the city, a single lamp stays lit all day long. Just in case the night comes early, you wake to a sound you haven't heard in weeks: rain on the roof. Not the gentle kind. Not the sleepy tapping that lulls you back under the covers. No, this is the persistent city drumming rain, the kind that makes puddles swell and hats useless. You sit up slowly, legs stiff from yesterday's miles, and you already know your coat isn't dry enough for this. You sigh, another shift begins. You dress methodically: wool socks, thin trousers, undershirt, shirt coat, second coat, boots. Gloves last. You shake them out just in case anything crawled inside while you slept. You once found a mouse curled in the thumb. It blinked at you. You offered it a name, then evicted it with a gentle flick. You step outside. The rain hits you like a conversation you weren't ready for. The torch will be trouble tonight. Everything will be trouble tonight. The rain flattens the city. The stones glisten like polished bone. The gutters gurgle and the sky hangs low gray, smeared and stubborn. You stop by the depot first. You're not the only one. 3 other lamplighters are already huddled under the awning. A young woman chewing licorice, a man with a limp and a flask, and a boy no older than 16 wearing boots clearly 2 sizes too big. The woman nods. Lovely night for a swim. You smirk. If I drown lighting a lamp, tell my landlord I never paid February's rent. She raises a brow. You didn't. No, but it'll annoy her more if she thinks I meant to. Inside the depot, you collect your gear. The oil can feel heavier in the cold. The torch pole is slightly warped. The trimmer sticks in its hinge. You test it. Still cuts. You scan the board. Your route has shifted: slightly more lamps in the south quarter tonight. Longer, flatter streets, more exposed, more puddles, and worse, more people. Rain doesn't clear the streets, it changes them. It brings out the cart covers, the quick-stepping messengers, the umbrella vendors, the boot black boys setting up wooden crates on corners. But most of all, it brings out the watchers. People stand in windows during rain, not doing anything, just staring. You're used to being invisible, it's part of the job. But when the rain falls and the light glows softly through the wet, people look. And for a lamplighter, that's always uncomfortable. Historical fact. Rainy nights often meant higher incident reports for lamplighters, not just from wet equipment, but from visibility issues and public scrutiny. In certain cities, residents would open their shutters specifically to watch lamplighters work, either out of boredom or in case of mishap. A lamp bursting in the rain, after all, was a rare but impressive sight. Fringe tidbit. A municipal note from Glasgow once instructed lamplighters to keep coats of neat appearance, especially on wet evenings, as citizens take greater notice when illuminated. This led to the coining of the sarcastic term raincoat theater, describing lamplighters who exaggerated their gestures in stormy weather, to entertain onlookers or to spite them. You light your first lamp with more effort than usual. The match fights you, the wick sputters. Your hands are soaked before you even trim it properly, but it holds. The next 3 are harder. Water has seeped into the casings, pooling in the base. You have to sponge it out with your handkerchief, which now smells like wet socks and kerosene. You wring it out onto the cobblestones, muttering apologies to whatever lives between the cracks. A man watches from a window nearby, his face half lit by your flame. You nod out of reflex. He doesn't nod back. The streets begin to blur together. You lose track of which lamps are ahead and which ones you've passed. Your card is soaked through your pencil markings, bleeding into gray smudges. And then you reach the square. Every route has a point like this, a central crossing, a landmark. For your route, it's this square: 4 shops on 4 corners, a public well in the middle, and 8 lamps arranged in a circle, like an ancient ritual someone half remembered. You light them clockwise, your torch hissing with each new ignition. The flames struggle against the rain, but they hold barely. You work fast, faster than usual, your movements efficient and instinctive. And all around you, people watch, through lace curtains, through cracked shutters, through fogged glass. They say nothing, just observe. You light the last lamp in the circle and step back. For a brief moment, the square glows like a sacred place. The well's iron rim glistens. The raindrops catch the lamplight mid-fall like fireflies frozen in descent. And then one by one the lamps begin to flicker. Not all at once, just a soft synchronized faltering. You step forward, torch raised. and the flame of lamp number 4 dies. You relight it. Lamp number 7 sputters, then 2, then 1. The rain hasn't changed, the air hasn't shifted, but the square is no longer still. You stand in the center, 8 lamps, all struggling, and the watchers, still there, still silent. You relight lamp number 1. The match flares against the damp. You hear footsteps now slow, deliberate somewhere behind you, but you don't turn. Because the rain is getting louder, not heavier, louder, as if the water itself is waking up. Historians still argue whether weather influenced lamplighter mythology. Some suggest that certain rainstorms, especially those arriving after dry spells, triggered waves of superstitious reports. Lamps that refused to hold flame puddles that seemed bottomless gas lines that hummed with voices. Most agree these were byproducts of exhaustion and exposure, but not all. You light the last lamp again. It holds, and this time the square stays bright. The rain softens, the footsteps fade, and one of the window curtains drops shut. You exhale and walk on, because you have 14 more lamps and a whole night's worth of weather ahead of you. Rain makes the city smell different. It's not always bad, just specific. Tonight it smells like wet brick old coal and something you can only describe as laundry that lost a bet. As you head deeper into the south quarter, that smell sticks to everything: your coat, your gloves, your thoughts. You wipe your sleeve across your forehead, though it does nothing to stop the rain. It just makes the water slightly grimmier. You reach the next lamp. It's in front of a grocer's long since shuttered for the night. A chalkboard sign leans against the wall, the words long blurred into nothing. You set up the ladder with mechanical care. Climb. Open the casing. Inside the wick is bloated and soggy, soaking in a pool of cold rainwater. You mutter under your breath and pull out your small folding knife. The wick needs to be cut clean, no point lighting a soggy cord. Historical fact: some lamplighters carried multiple spare wicks, often wrapped in oiled cloth to keep them dry. The practice became standard after several accidents in which waterlogged wicks caused sputtering that ignited residual gas. Cities began to issue wick pouches in waterproof leather with reinforced snaps, though most workers simply tied theirs up in oilcloth and hoped for the best. Fringe tidbit: in Bristol, one lamplighter was known for refusing to replace wicks, insisting on drying them by holding them under his armpit for precisely 11 seconds. This earned him the nickname Sweaty Tom, and more importantly, a written reprimand. You trim the wick, replace it, and strike your match inside your coat's shadow. The flame catches with a soft chuff, and you light the lamp. It glows amber golden even despite the storm. And for a moment you allow yourself to feel proud. Then someone claps. Just once. You freeze halfway down the ladder, every hair on your neck rising in perfect synchronization. You twist your head. There's a figure across the street standing under an overhang. Tall, motionless face in shadow. You squint. The figure raises a hand. Not in greeting, not in warning, just up, as if to acknowledge. Then it turns and walks away. You finish climbing down slowly, not rushing, but not taking your time either. By the time you cross the street, the figure is gone. No open door, no sound. Just your reflection in a window soaked and spooked. You don't say anything, you just keep walking. You've got lamps to light. The next stretch is quieter. Narrower streets, more compact buildings. This is an older part of town, cobblestones polished by 1,000 years of foot traffic and spilt soup. The lamps here are closer together, and many are fixed with ornate ironwork, left over from some forgotten restoration effort. A few even bear family crests, likely replicas. You light one without trouble, then another, and then, boom, a thunderclap splits the sky. You duck instinctively, torch held out as if it'll block lightning. The sound rolls down the street like a cart full of drums. A few windows flicker with candlelight. Curtains shift, and then silence again. The rain starts falling harder. You rush the next lamp, your fingers slipping as you fumble the casing. Your gloves are soaked through. You can feel the chill in your knuckles now, deep in the joints. You drop the trimmer. It lands with a splash and sinks under the edge of the curb. You curse quietly, creatively, and fish it out with your pole. It's scratched but usable. You climb, you light, you descend. You wipe your face again and realize your sleeve is just moving water around. Then a break in the rain, a moment of calm. The clouds thin above you just a touch, enough to let a weak moonbeam cut through. It shines directly onto the street ahead, illuminating a small courtyard you haven't seen before. That's odd. You've walked this route dozens of times. That courtyard was never there. You approach slowly, torch held low. The street narrows, then opens into a wide circular space surrounded by buildings you don't recognize. No signs, no shutters, just dark windows and silence. In the center is a single lamp. But it's not gas. It's oil-fed. Tall, slender, and utterly wrong for this part of town. It shouldn't be here. It doesn't belong to your system. It doesn't even look real. And yet it burns. A steady white flame. You walk around it once. It doesn't flicker. You don't touch it. You don't even get close. Instead, you back away, carefully, slowly. And as you exit the courtyard, you glance back. It's gone. The street is solid again. Cobblestones unbroken. No opening. No lamp. No courtyard. You keep walking. Historians still argue about city phantom blocks locations that appear on old maps but vanish in the modern layout. Some claim these are simple cartographic errors. Others suggest street names were moved to confuse invaders, criminals, or taxmen. And then there are the stories from lamplighters, the places they walked once then never found again. You light the next lamp. It hisses in protest but stays lit. The next is easier. Then another. You've lost track of how many are left. You don't care. You just move forward, one flame at a time. You pause at the next lamp, letting the rain wash over your face, your shoulders, your thoughts. You're soaked through. Your bones ache. Your torch is sputtering again, and your trimmer has taken on a slight bend that makes every cut feel like a negotiation. And yet, there's something calming about this. The streets are quiet again. Not eerily so this time, just calm. The thunder has rolled off into the distance. The worst of the rain has settled into a steady, manageable drizzle. And the city seems to have accepted your presence tonight, at least for now. You glance upward. The lamp above you is an older model pre-gas expansion. You can tell by the thicker casing, the reinforced brackets, and the oddly shaped latch that never opens the same way twice. These were built tough for corners that got the worst weather, the heaviest foot traffic, the occasional thrown cartwheel. You climb slowly, not because you're tired, though you are, but because the ladder is slick. You've already slipped once tonight. You're not eager to repeat the experience. At the top, you pop the latch, trim the wick, light it cleanly, and lower the casing with care. It catches immediately, holding a steady glow. You lean against the post for a moment high above the street and look out over the rooftops. The city looks like it's exhaling. Historical fact. In some cities, lamplighters were taught to pause after every seventh lamp to check their route rest and unofficially reflect. This wasn't written into law or procedure, but it was a tradition. One old training manual notes, every seventh flame is a chance to breathe. Fringe tidbit. In Marseille, there was a superstition among lamplighters that every seventh lamp was watched by the ghost of a previous worker. If your match went out twice in a row at one of these spots, you were to leave the lamp unlit as a mark of respect or risk the twisting wind. Nobody could agree on what the twisting wind actually was, but nobody wanted to find out. You descend the ladder and move on, passing two more lamps without issue. One is near a bakery that smells impossibly of warm bread even at this hour. The other is beside a post office with a cracked sign and a cat sleeping beneath the bench. The cat lifts its head as you pass, gives you a look that says you again, and goes back to dreaming. Then you hear something you haven't heard in hours: bells. Not church bells. Not alarm bells. Just bells. Faint. Melodic. Somewhere in the distance, drifting through the streets like a memory that forgot where it was supposed to go. You pause, torch tilted to the side, listening. The sound fades. You shake your head and keep walking. You arrive at one of your more difficult posts, a lamp wedged in an alley behind a milliner's shop. The alley is narrow, barely wide enough for your ladder, and the wall near the post is damp with old moss. The footing here is always bad. You steady the ladder, climb, open the lamp. It resists. The latch sticks. The casing creaks. You have to use the flat of your palm to coax it open, then trim the wick with your bent trimmer and strike a careful match. It lights. You exhale. And then from behind you at the mouth of the alley, someone whistles. Just once. A single short, perfect note. You twist around from halfway up the ladder. The alley is empty. The torchlight flickers against the damp walls. The fog thickens just slightly, swallowing the far end of the street. You stare for a long moment. No footsteps. No voices. Just that memory of a whistle that lingers like steam. You finish your work quickly. You don't run, but you don't dawdle either. You reach the next post and find it half lit already. The flame inside is barely holding, weak and yellow, as if someone else tried to light it before you. You don't like that thought. This is your route. No one else should be here. You adjust the wick, trim the char, and relight it. The lamp flares back to life, glowing brighter than it has all night. You glance up at the sky. The clouds are breaking slightly. A few stars peek through, tentative and pale. You realize the night is more than half gone, maybe even 3/4. You're nearing the end. Historians still argue whether lamplighters were ever truly off duty. Some worked split shifts, lighting at dusk, extinguishing at dawn. Others patrolled all night watching the flames, dealing with mischief makers, or just walking to stay warm. In some cities, they were paid extra for overnight watch, especially if they carried a badge or a city-issued whistle. Whether those whistles ever worked is another debate entirely. You pass a closed bookshop, the display window fogged with moisture. Someone has drawn a face on the glass, a simple smile with wide eyes and a round head. Probably a child. Possibly something else. You smile back anyway. You light two more lamps with minimal trouble. They feel like familiar friends now, posts you've visited 100 times, where the ladder sits just right and the flame catches on the first strike. You're in the final curve of your route now, walking a street that arcs around a public garden. The hedges are trimmed into animal shapes, badgers, you think. Or possibly bears. Hard to say in the dark. And there at the edge of the hedge you see someone. A girl, maybe 12, maybe less, wearing a red scarf and no coat. You freeze. She looks at you, doesn't speak, then turns and walks around the corner. You hesitate, then follow. You round the hedge. No one there. You search for footprints, mudgrass, something, but there's only stone dry beneath the eaves and your own tracks doubling back in the direction you came. The garden rustles, just the wind, just the leaves, just the night. You step back to your route and keep walking. Only 5 lamps remain. The city is quiet, but the darkness, it's still listening. You adjust the strap of your toolkit as you walk, feeling the weight shift against your back. 5 lamps left, that's all. Just 5. You repeat it to yourself like a chant, like a number that will anchor you to something solid. The garden disappears behind you, its topiary creatures melting into silhouettes. The city resumes its familiar rhythm, stone, fog, rain. Though the rain has eased into a fine mist now, the kind that clings to your eyelashes and crawls down the back of your neck like a curious insect. You reach the next lamp, positioned at the top of a gentle slope. Below, the street curves into a small market square, one of those older ones with stone benches, a horse trough, and at least 3 buildings that lean noticeably to the left. The post here is newer. Cast iron with a brass collar that gleams faintly in your torchlight. It was probably installed last year after the old one cracked during a cart accident involving a baker's apprentice, a wheelbarrow full of flour, and a very startled goat. You climb the ladder. The air here feels clearer, less strange. The kind of clear that comes not from absence of trouble, but from knowing this part of the city simply minds its own business. You trim the wick, light it, easy. Flame catches, glows, no resistance. You nod once to yourself. Then from below you hear a voice. Why do you bother? You freeze. It's quiet, calm, not mocking, just curious. You lower your torch and look down. No one. Just the curved street below, lit now by the lamp you've just tended. You scan the windows, empty, the benches, still, the trough, dry. You descend the ladder slowly. Why do you bother? The voice repeats. This time it comes from a different direction. You spin, still no one. But the voice follows a whisper riding the back of your thoughts. To light what darkness makes again and again. You keep walking. You know this game. Some nights the city talks back. Some nights the gas hisses too much, the torch burns too long. The route stretches until time itself feels warped. You tell yourself it's exhaustion, the brain inventing things to fill the silence. Historical fact. Some lamplighters, especially in colder climates or dense cities, suffered mild hallucinations during long shifts brought on by gas exposure, poor ventilation, or sheer fatigue. Reports include hearing names whispered from unlit alleys, catching glimpses of people behind already lit lamps, and once seeing their own double step around a corner just before sunrise. Fringe tidbit. One notorious case in Edinburgh details a lamplighter who became convinced the lamps themselves were conscious. He refused to light 2 adjacent posts on the grounds that they gossip if left alone together. He retired early, was given a pension, and never went near fire again. You light the next lamp, jaw clenched, trying to block out the voice, the memory, the itch that something isn't quite right. The lamp takes longer to catch. The wick is frayed. You fumble the trimming, nick your glove, and swear under your breath. The match breaks. You try again. Finally, the flame blooms, and when it does, the voice disappears. You don't sigh, you just move. 3 lamps left. The street narrows again, buildings pressing in close on either side. You step carefully now, not just for footing, but because this area is known for strange things. Not the supernatural kind, the bureaucratic kind. This is border territory, the spot where 3 districts meet, but none take full responsibility for it. Technically, this stretch of road is shared by the city's north, south, and central wards, which means maintenance here is delayed, trash collection is inconsistent, and of course the lamps often go unlit for days. You light the first one of the 3. The casing is cracked. Someone stuffed rags around the hinges, maybe to stop the glass from rattling in the wind. Maybe just to make a point. You don't remove them, you just light it and walk on. The second lamp, the penultimate one on your list, is surprisingly well maintained. The post is polished, the housing clean. Inside, someone's tucked a folded scrap of paper. You pull it out expecting some prank, a drawing, a crude joke. Instead, it's a poem, handwritten in looping script. It reads, I light a world that's not my own and vanish when the sun has grown. My flame is not for warmth or fame, but still, I shine without a name. You stare at it for a long moment. You fold it back and tuck it into your coat pocket. You light the lamp. And now there's only one left. You know it well. Lamp number 112. It stands at the top of a short staircase leading to a small plaza that serves as a cut-through for tired apprentices, stray cats, and the occasional violinist who's too proud to busk on main streets. You climb the stairs slowly, torch flickering, breath fogging. You reach the final post. The moment you see it, you stop, because someone is already there, not standing, not walking, sitting. A woman in a long coat facing away from you, seated on the lowest step beside the lamp. You hesitate. Torchlight glows softly, rain mist settles around the stairs. You take a cautious step. She speaks without turning. You always light this one too quickly. Your mouth goes dry. You start, then stop. She stands, but when she turns, there's no face. Just a soft blur, a shadow where features should be. She raises a hand, not threatening, just a gesture of farewell, then vanishes. Gone. No sound. Just the final lamp waiting. You light it. It takes instantly. You descend the steps slowly, and behind you the city holds its breath. You descend the stairs one step at a time, the final lamp burning steadily behind you, silent, golden, and undisturbed. The image of the woman, or whatever she was, lingers like a smudge in your mind. You try not to look back. You try not to wonder if she'll be there again tomorrow. This is the end of your route, officially. And unofficially, it's where most lamplighters pause, gather their thoughts, and decide if they want to keep doing this for another night. Not just because it's the last lamp, but because it's the farthest from everything else. The edge of the district where the city fades into stone fences and distant farmland. A place where darkness still rules beyond the reach of flame. You walk now without hurry. The torch in your hand has gone out, leaving behind a blackened wick and a faint trail of smoke. You could relight it, but there's no need. You're done. You head back toward the inner streets, following the line of lamps you lit tonight. It's a quiet triumph, seeing them still burning, each one a tiny promise that held despite the rain, the wind, the voices, the strange figures, and your own tired body. One of the lamps near the bookbinders flutters. You pause. But it rights itself. The flame calms. You move on. Historical fact. While extinguishing lamps at dawn was standard practice in many cities, certain districts allowed them to burn longer as a way to maintain order during early morning market hours. Lamplighters in these areas worked rotating shifts, returning at staggered times to extinguish only a portion of the route depending on the light and weather. Fringe tidbit. In a city like York, early morning markets prompted the creation of half-shift lamps, designated lanterns, that burned from dusk to third bell, approximately 4:40 a.m., before being snuffed out by a second wave of workers. These were often marked with subtle symbols, small notches, scratched initials, or in one case a bent iron curl shaped like a sheep's ear. You pass such a lamp now. The small twist of iron at its base looks like nothing at first glance, but you've been doing this long enough to spot it. You grin. You reach the square with the well again, the place with the perfect circle of lamps. Still lit, still symmetrical. You pause and admire your handiwork. The city is so different at this hour. You begin the extinguishing phase of your route select lamps, only starting with those that will soon be touched by dawn. Your snuffer tool is small, shaped like a bell fitted to the end of your trimmer pole. You reach up, cap the flame, and watch the light go out in an instant. From flame to memory in one flick. You move on to the next, and the next. Each lamp you extinguish leaves behind a slightly darker patch of street, but it's a soft dark now, not the heavy kind that devours sound and breath. Morning is close. You can feel it in the quiet shifting of the air. Somewhere a rooster crows. You'd like to believe it's a natural occurrence, but you suspect someone just keeps it in a box for effect. You pass the fountain, the cat from earlier, now perched on its edge, licking a paw. It pauses to look at you. You nod. It does not nod back. No one ever does. You extinguish another lamp, then stop beneath it for a moment, letting your eyes adjust. There's a poster nailed to the wall here, half-wet edges curling. It advertises a missing person. The ink has run. The name is unreadable. The face blurred. But you see one detail clearly. The red scarf. You look around. The street is empty. The torch in your hand feels colder than it should. You move on. 3 more lamps to extinguish. Then 2. Then the last. You climb the final ladder of your shift, your boots slipping slightly on the wet rungs. You pause halfway up, one hand on the rail, and let your gaze travel down the street, watching your entire route laid out in receding pinpricks of light. You lit them all. You walked each one. And now you end where you began. You reach the lamp. Snuff it. The flame vanishes. You descend. Historians still argue whether lamplighters ever considered themselves craftsmen, civil servants, or something else entirely. Some memoirs refer to the job as a burden of fire. Others call it the task of giving light to shadows. But most simply say, we walked, we lit, we left. You walk now. No torch. No light. Just memory. You return to the depot as the sun finally crests the rooftops, washing the city in soft gold. A delivery boy yawns as he unlocks a gate. A baker lifts a tray of steaming loaves to cool in the window. The city doesn't notice you, but your lamps are still burning. For now, you log the final extinguishment with a wet, dragging flourish across the depot's ledger. The ink pools briefly where the nib hesitates, almost like it too is tired of signing off on this night. You stare at the page a moment longer than usual. All the boxes are filled, the route complete, the hour scrawled beside your initials. There's a strange silence in the depot. Not empty, just still. The kind of silence you get in a room that's been emptied of people but not of presence. The oil-smudged tools hanging on the wall. The collection of gloves drying on a string. The notice board with half-torn pages fluttering slightly as the early morning draft sneaks in through a gap in the shutter. You sit down on the bench near the stove, now cold and black. You remove one boot with a groan, then the other. Your feet thank you in several languages. You rub your socks together for warmth, then tilt your head back, the eyes closed. And then you hear a low, dragging creak from the other side of the depot. You open one eye. It's just the main door easing shut behind the wind. Or perhaps another lamplighter came in, or left, or didn't. You don't get up to check. Instead, you reach into your coat pocket and pull out the small scrap of paper, the poem you found earlier tucked into the lamp casing. The ink has run slightly, but the words are still legible. You read them again. Still no signature. Still no clue who wrote them. But somehow the verse fits better now. After this long night, after the strange voices and the girl in the red scarf and the impossible courtyard, after all the fire you gave to the city, you're not the same person who started this shift. You fold the paper carefully, then slip it between the pages of the depot's spare ledger tucked near the back, beneath a page titled Surplus Matches and another that reads, Complaints Unverified. You smile faintly. You wonder how many lamplighters have done the same, tucked away a strange note, a small secret, a private echo. Historical fact. Depot ledgers often doubled as informal communication hubs for lamplighters. Workers would write notes to each other, sometimes just initials or sketches, documenting odd encounters or dangerous conditions. Some depots kept entire black books of strange sightings ranging from the practical loose rung on ladder post 73 to the bizarre crow on lamp post 11 hasn't blinked in 3 nights. Fringe tidbit. In Copenhagen's northern quarter, one depot kept a single black ledger simply titled The Others. Inside were dated entries like Saw her again, white dress, no shoes, and don't answer if it knocks. The ledger eventually vanished during a renovation in 1923. No one has claimed responsibility for removing it. You lace your boots again and step outside into a dawn that doesn't seem to care that you've been awake all night. The streets are starting to stir. You see the butcher unlocking his front door, yawning so hard it looks like his face might unhinge. The baker's already got a line, 2 women with bonnets arguing gently about crust texture. A boy kicks a stone down the cobbled road, his boots barely tied. And the lamps. They're still glowing. Faintly now paling in the fresh morning light, but present. You cross the square heading toward your own little room above the tailor's shop when you spot someone waiting at the fountain. It's the night watchman, Hal. He's got a cup of something steaming in his hand, and he lifts it in your direction. Long one, he asks. You nod. Too long. He sips, then gestures toward the nearest lamp. Still burning, he says. You both look up at it. The glow is dim, almost invisible in the sunlight. And yet there. Hal doesn't say anything else. He doesn't need to. Some jobs don't need applause. They just need doing. You continue your walk. By the time you reach your door, you've passed 23 of the 25 lamps you lit last night. They're all still holding on. You stop at your stoop, glance over your shoulder, and see the 24th. It's flickering now. Fighting the sun. You unlock your door and step inside. One lamp remains unvisited. You know where it is. And you'll check on it later. But first you sleep. Historians still argue whether lamplighters knew the weight of what they carried. Some describe it as men with fire in their hands. Others say it was simpler a walk, a light away home. But maybe it's both. A burden and a comfort. A job and a kind of quiet prayer. For now, you lay your coat over the chair. Kick off your boots. Stretch out on your cot. And as you close your eyes, the city slowly forgets you were ever awake. Sleep claims you with the gentleness of fog and the weight of stone. You don't remember closing your eyes. You only remember drifting first into the softness of the blanket, then into the deeper warmth of not having to move, not having to think, not having to light a single thing. You wake much later to the scrape of a broom on cobblestone outside your window. Afternoon sun stretches lazily through the glass, highlighting the dust motes that dance above your desk. You sit up slowly, spine creaking like an old ship, and swing your legs over the edge of the bed. It takes a moment for your feet to remember how to support you. Eventually they do. You eat bread that's gone a bit stale and cheese that probably shouldn't have been left out, but both taste better than anything did last night. You wash them down with the dregs of a cold coffee pot and stand by the window watching as the city reassembles itself in daylight. It's a different beast in the sun, no longer a riddle wrapped in shadows, but a humming hive of footsteps, wagons, voices, smells. Bright, chaotic, alive. Your lamp stands at the edge of the square, flickering gently. The sun's won out for now, but you can see the flame behind the glass still trying. Holding on. You'll have to extinguish it soon, but not yet. You sit back down and check your boots, dry but scuffed. You polish them with the corner of your sleeve purely out of habit. Then you hear it. Tap, tap. A knock at the door. You frown. Rarely does anyone knock, rarer still in the middle of the day. You open it to find a boy 12 maybe with a cap too large for his head and ink-stained fingers. He offers you an envelope. For the lamplighter, he says, before darting off without waiting for a coin or even a nod. You open it slowly. Inside is a folded paper. No letter, just a map. Your route, but altered. Some lamps circled, others crossed out. And one, just one, marked with a small red X. Number 73. You stare at it. Lamp 73 is, well, it's complicated. It technically isn't on your current route. It was reassigned to another district last winter when the road was rerouted. But no one ever updated the ledger properly, and now it floats in a kind of jurisdictional limbo. Some nights you light it, some nights you don't. Some nights it's already lit before you get there. You fold the map and slip it into your coat pocket. Later at the depot, you mention the map to Hal. He squints at it, then scratches his beard. 73, he mutters. That's the one by the old observatory, right? You nod. Huh. He shrugs. That lamp's got a mind of its own. Used to flicker every time there was a lunar eclipse, they say. Historical fact. In several cities with active observatories, especially in the mid-1800s, lamplights near scientific buildings were sometimes fitted with customized filters or gas flow valves to reduce glare during observation nights. In rare cases, these modifications caused malfunctions that remained unexplained for decades. Fringe tidbit. One lamplighter in Prague insisted lamp 1 and 12, not 73, but eerily similar dimmed whenever he thought about his mother. His diary found years later includes the entry, "Ask the lamp not to flicker today." It obliged. You decide to check lamp 73 before tonight's shift. Not part of the job, but also not something you can ignore. You walk there in the early evening before the mist rises. It's still standing nestled against the high wall of the old observatory, its base half swallowed by ivy. The metal is slightly warped, the casing clouded. The flame inside, lit, already. You didn't light it. No one on your shift did. And yet it burns. Softly, steadily. As if it's always been lit. As if it's waiting for you. You lean against the wall across from it and watch the flame dance. There's no wind, no sound. Just you, the light, and the slow turning wheel of your own thoughts. You don't try to make sense of it. Instead, you whisper, "Thanks for covering me." Then you walk away, back toward the depot, back to your route. Because your shift starts again in less than an hour. And while most lamps wait in darkness, one of them already knows. Evening comes on slow like honey poured from a chilled jar. The light softens around the building, slipping into corners, folding into rooftops. The city stretches yawning awake in its own nighttime way. It doesn't get quieter at dusk, just different. Voices grow lower. Footsteps change cadence. Doors close with a kind of finality that daylight never demands. You stand in the depot again, gear in hand. Your route hasn't changed tonight, at least not officially. You scan the ledger, glance at the names beside the nearby circuits. Nothing odd. Hal's taken the northwest. Clara's on the east curve. You've got your usual loop central lower slope riverside. You grab your torch, your trimmer, your pouch of matches, checked and double-checked. You hesitate only a second before tucking the folded map from earlier into your coat again. Not for use, just because. Outside, the air smells like wet stone and something baking in someone's distant oven. You imagine it's cinnamon even though it's probably boiled turnips. Your first lamp is waiting. You light it with practiced grace. A small woof of gas, a bloom of yellow, and the world tilts softly into twilight. You move on. Your boots know this path now. Your hands know each pole, each latch, each wick that leans a bit too far or needs a firmer twist. It's less work now and more rhythm, like reciting a poem your muscles have memorized, even if your mind forgets a line or two. At lamp 12, you pause. It flickers slightly more than usual. You adjust the flow just a hair, then trim again, watching the flames settle into steadiness. Historical fact. The design of gas lamps often varied not only from city to city, but neighborhood to neighborhood based on class, local funding, and architectural quirks. Wealthier areas were often granted taller posts with decorative ironwork, while industrial zones got shorter, broader units designed for function over form. Some routes required lamplighters to carry multiple key fittings just to open the housings. Fringe tidbit? In Dublin, one lamplighter reportedly used a set of 4 keys on a rotating chain, each engraved with a different saint's name. When asked why, he said it wasn't for the locks, it was for the mood of the flame. If it flared too fast, he blamed Saint Bridget. If it refused to catch, he asked Saint Kieran for forgiveness. Tonight, your mood is quiet, focused, and the flames seem to understand. Each one lights with less resistance than the night before. You almost wonder if the city's trying to make peace with you after everything: the courtyard, the red scarf, the faceless woman. Maybe it's just being merciful? But then again, you've walked enough streets to know the mercy isn't always what it seems. You pass the alley where someone whistled last night. You don't pause, you don't look. You do notice, though, that someone's written a new line of chalk along the bricks. To light is to witness is to owe. You frown, keep walking. At lamp 31, a man steps aside to let you work. He's smoking a pipe carved to look like a lion. You nod politely. Burns bright tonight, he says, watching you light the flame. You nod again. But before you can leave, he adds, just be careful if you pass number 73. You freeze slightly, glance sideways. He smiles faintly, teeth yellow from tobacco. Some lamps remember, especially the ones near stars. Then he turns, disappears into the fog, and leaves behind only a curl of smoke that smells like cloves and something older. You light 10 more lamps. They glow like old friends. You near the edge of your route. Your boots leave clean prints in the wet cobblestones. Then comes a decision. Lamp 73 isn't on your list, but it's on the map. You stand at the crossroads left toward your finish point, right toward the observatory's old shadow. You go right. You don't rush. It's not far. But the walk stretches, somehow lengthens into something bigger than its distance. The houses feel closer here, the shadows heavier. You think you see someone ahead, but it turns out to be a draped tarp over an unused stall. And then there it is. Lamp 73, still lit. Still wrong. The flame inside is bluer than the others. Not cold, but cooler somehow, as though it burns slower, deeper, more deliberately. You reach up to inspect the casing. No sound, no hiss of gas, just silence. Then you notice it. Someone has etched something into the glass almost invisible unless the angle is right. 3 letters. U. Not a signature. A label. You step back uncertain, but not afraid. Historians still argue whether lamplighters ever left behind signs or flame marks, personal symbols, or tags etched near their favorite posts. Some insist this was pure fiction invented by later writers. Others point to recurring symbols, stars, crosses, initials found carved under the same lamps across decades. The truth remains shadowed. You don't erase the mark. You don't light the lamp again. You simply stand there, let it burn. And after a moment you whisper, I see you too. Then you walk away. Your shift continues. Your flame endures. The wind picks up as you leave lamp 73 behind, nudging the mist like fingers brushing across a fogged mirror. It's not cold anymore, not truly. The chill has softened into something atmospheric, like the city is breathing beside you, reminding you it's alive. A slow exhale through crooked chimneys and half-open shutters. You light 3 more lamps in a row, the routine familiar, now meditative. Torch, trim, match, light, glow, step back. Repeat. You don't think about the odd things anymore, not because they've stopped. No, not quite, but because you've accepted them. In this job, in these streets, some things are strange and some things are stranger still. Your route is a living thing. Sometimes it hums along gently. Sometimes it sings. Tonight it hums. You reach lamp 89 near the fishmongers. The smell never goes away no matter the hour, no matter the weather. You learned long ago to breathe through your mouth, not your nose on this stretch. The lamp itself is crooked. Always has been. You could report it, but you don't. You like it. It leans slightly to the left like it's eavesdropping on the shop below. You light it. It catches instantly as if grateful to be included. You smile. Then keep walking. Historical fact. Many cities had favorite lamps among lamplighters' posts with quirks or histories that made them oddly endearing. Some were known for consistently burning longer. some for being just slightly warmer in the winter. In larger cities like London and Berlin, lamplighters often named them quietly to one another. Old Salty the Hummer Whistler's Flame. Fringe tidbit. A lamp in Rotterdam reportedly refused to stay lit unless the worker hummed a lullaby while lighting it. It said that 3 generations of lamplighters passed down the tune, a melody no one could find a name for, but all swore by. When the city went electric, the lamp's post was quietly stolen. It's never been recovered. As you pass lamp 92, something flutters from the bracket. A paper creased, smudged clinging by a single corner. You peel it off carefully, a poem again. But this one is different. No rhymes, just lines. They will not know you lit them. They will forget who walked here, but the light will linger, and that is enough. You fold it, tuck it away. There's no signature, no initials, but you have your guess. The lamp you found it on already lit, even though you hadn't gotten to it yet. You keep walking. Near lamp 95, a young couple strolls past. He's speaking softly, hands gesturing as if telling a story. She laughs once, bright real. They barely notice you. You like it that way. You're not here to be seen. You're here to make others feel safe when they are. At lamp 98, the flame takes on a strange shape, just for a second. You blink. It looked like a figure, arms raised or maybe a lantern held overhead. But the wind shifts and the flame settles. Just coincidence. Just imagination. You keep going. 3 lamps left. You pass the edge of the market square, now deserted. You glance toward the fountain where you first saw Hal. The cat's there again. Or a different cat. Hard to tell. It blinks slowly as you walk by, then disappears into shadow with practiced elegance. You approach lamp 100, a milestone you think, a round number. You light it with a small flourish, twirling the torch just a bit, before pressing the flame to the open mouth of the lamp. It catches perfectly. A quiet triumph. No one sees it. No one needs to. Historians still argue whether the role of lamplighter was ever romantic. Some paint it as pure drudgery hours of cold, wet work for little pay. Others see it as a deeply human act, bringing light into dark places, ensuring the path stayed visible for bakers, dock workers, lovers, and the lost. Maybe it's both. You reach lamp 101. This one flickers violently before catching. You shield it with your coat until it calms, then step back and admire it. 1 lamp left, but you already know which one. You've saved lamp 112 for last, not because it's far, because it deserves it. It's the one by your own doorstep, the final post of your circuit, the end of your line, the quiet little watcher of your return home. You climb the ladder slower than usual, not because you're tired, because you want to remember this moment. You light the flame, and it flares in a warm bloom, steady and strong. It holds, and below the street waits in golden hush. You descend, tuck your tools into your satchel, and stand a moment longer. The city is awake, but not noisy. It breathes with you now. And the lamps, they glow. Because you lit them. And that's enough. You don't go inside right away. You stand in the street a few minutes longer, hands tucked in your coat pockets, letting the glow of a lamp 1 to 12 wash over your face like soft water. It's quiet now, so quiet you can hear the drip of condensation from an eave, the distant clack of a horse's hooves, the low shuffle of someone turning a key 3 houses down. The lamp above you hums faintly. You wonder if anyone else hears it the way you do. You're not in a hurry to sleep. You walked this city end to end tonight through rain and wind and silence, through flickers and flares and things you couldn't explain. You met shadows with no eyes, girls in red scarves, and a flame that spelled your name without ink. And still you lit every single lamp on your route. That's no small thing. You take out your torch and look at its charred head. The wood is warm in your hand. Familiar. A little cracked, a little blackened, but dependable. It got you through. You hang it back on the hook by your door. Tomorrow you'll check the wick, file the striker, oil the hinge on your trimmer case, but not tonight. Tonight your job is done. Inside, your little apartment greets you with creaking floorboards and the smell of dry wool. You don't light a candle, you don't need to. The lamplight from outside casts a gentle amber across your windowsill, enough to guide you to your cot. You undress slowly, savoring the sensation of removing damp socks and setting down your heavy belt of tools. Each piece clicks softly into its corner, forming the constellation of your trade flint, wick, gloves, cutter, pouch, snuffer. The gear of a ghost who leaves no footprints. You lie down and let your body sink into the blankets. And that's when it happens. A knock. Not on your door, on the window. You freeze. The sound is light and almost polite. A tap-tap like a pebble against glass. You rise without a word, move to the window, pull back the curtain. Nothing. Just lamp 112 burning steady. No shape, no shadow, no figure in the fog. But as you begin to turn away, you see something written in the condensation on the inside of the glass. 2 words. Still burning. You don't flinch. You press your palm to the words, smearing them gently until only your warmth remains. Historians still argue whether lamplighters believed in omens. Some insist the profession was too practical, too rooted in soot and brass and matches. Others say the opposite, that walking between shadows made belief inevitable. Not in ghosts or gods necessarily, but in the small signs. A flame that refused to catch. A hush that fell too fast. A light that flickered in the shape of a name. You lie back down. Outside, the lamps glow on. The city for once feels at peace. And as your eyes begin to close, you think of the lines from the poems left behind. They will not know you lit them, but the light will linger, and that is enough. And that is enough. Now take one slow breath in, and one long breath out. You've walked the streets of a city before electric sleep. You've shouldered the weight of darkness, carrying nothing but a wick and a match, and a quiet kind of purpose. And now, your work is done. The lamps are lit. The night is softened. The footsteps of others will fall where yours once did, and they may never know your name, may never even wonder who kept their path warm or who placed that gentle glow outside their door. But that's the way it's always been. The light doesn't ask for credit. It just burns, quietly, faithfully, until the sun takes over. So now let your breath slow. Let your body sink. You don't need to trim another wick. You don't need to climb another rung. All you need now is rest. The city holds its silence. The lamp outside your window burns like an old friend watching over you. And the world for just a little while is safe. Sleep, lamplighter. Sleep.